right, we'll call to order the regular meeting of the Chisholm City Council for May 13th, 2020. Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
Let me just start by just reminding everybody, if you're sitting listening, try to mute your phone if you can. You'll notice people moving their chairs and stuff, and you keep popping on the screen. What's going on there is we're basically you're cutting in on whoever's talking. So try to do that if you at all can. Margaret, could you take a roll call, please?
Councillor Lance.
Here.
Councillor Fountain.
Here.
Councillor Vaki.
Here.
Councillor Varda.
Here.
Councillor Campbell.
Here.
And Mayor Champa.
And I am here. Okay, adopt the agenda. Late today, most of you probably seen some estimates come across your email from Larry. I asked him this morning if he had those ready, because if we do look to move ahead with allowing the Redhead Mountain Bike to open on June 12th, I think that's the correct date, June 12th, we're going to want to move on these items that are actually a budget. It's actually a budgeted item as well, so we can get that thing coming our direction. I don't know where I would put that. It really doesn't matter. I'd entertain a motion to accept agenda as is with the one addition as the last item for that ATV that Larry had brought quotes forward for.
I'll make the motion to adopt agenda and add on the rescue vehicle and equipment.
Second.
Motion by Councillor Lance, second by Councillor Fountain. Any other discussion? Margaret, could you take a vote, please?
Sorry about that. Councillor Lance.
Aye.
Councillor Fountain.
Aye.
Councillor Vaki.
Aye.
Councillor Varda.
Aye.
Councillor Campbell.
Aye.
Mayor Champa.
Aye. Okay, that agenda is approved. Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag of the United States of America.
and to the republic for which it stands,
One nation.
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jim, we should just have you do that. You're good at it. All right, Bill, did anything come in over the wire for any type of public participation? No, Mayor, I did not receive anything. Okay, good. Okay, moving on to this first item. The reason I moved it up, as we were talking before the meeting started, I was kind of going through a rundown. We have Jim Plummer with Iron Range Resources on with us. We have Donna Johnson from the Minnesota Discovery Center on with us. We have Benji Neff with IROC. He's the president of IROC. We have Pete Carroll with Bar Engineering, also the vice president of IROC. We have Pat Cassingham, IROC volunteer maintenance director. We also have Roland Schoen with our ambulance service on here. This item was brought to us basically the last meeting to look at if we could get the Redhead Bike Park opened on June 12th. Many concerns, comments from the council, legitimate concerns. And we didn't do anything with it. Bill and I and Larry knew we were going to be bringing this back, try to fill in all the gaps at this meeting. So we were looking for the feedback we got from the council. So that was good. After the meeting, I did speak with Larry, and he said, John, a lot of the stuff that the council brought up has been discussed, among the groups involved. It's all being worked on. With that said, I asked Bill if he could get a Zoom meeting set up with myself, Bill, Larry, we had Carol was on the call, Jim Plummer. I believe Linda Johnson was on the call as well from Iron Range Resources. Basically, what I was trying to find out is, you know, from a layman's standpoint, how's the whole bike park thing going to work between the different groups? Are we addressing all these issues the council has brought up? Are we going to be ready on June 12th? And quite frankly, there's a lot of it I didn't completely understand myself. When we got done with that meeting, we asked the two individuals, Mr. Plummer and Mr. Carroll, to supply us with a number of different things so that we can kind of paint a picture of this project for the council, so they can see where we're at on this thing. If you can look at some of your agenda package items, one of the main, it starts out with a timeline. It's pretty straightforward. It's item number 1. Okay. Second item is from the president of IROC. Bill specifically asked IROC to tell us why they feel it's important to get this park opened before the entire thing is completed. Benji did a very good job with this letter. There's some very good reasons on there. I couldn't agree with more with them. The next item, item number 3, I asked the group if we could get a picture so the council can kind of understand how this whole thing lays out. Like if you're looking at it from an airplane, levels of, you know, danger levels and things like that. So they provided us with a very good map. We discussed a lot of things to do with how the operation is going to work. What's this thing look like when it's opened? Who's running things? Who's paying attention to make sure we don't have areas of washing out or dangerous areas or things like that? And basically the operation maintenance and risk management plan, which is our 4th item that we would need to approve. If you got a chance to read through it, it really outlines well pretty much what everybody's responsibility is in this project. Item number 5, a big concern of the council, signage. How are we going to make sure that they're safe? We're safe out there. People know where they're supposed to be riding, things like that. How we keep them out of areas that are under construction with while we're using the rest of it. So they put together a whole signage plan for us. Fencing plan, we know we have to do some fencing. We know we have to do some signage in there. So they put together that whole plan for us on what's going to be done down there. Item 7, basically it's the COVID-19 and how things are done while you're working on trails and using trails. So that's pretty straightforward. Economic impact statement number 8. 9 and 10 are basically our joint powers agreement with the amendment that we would need to approve in order to move forward and get this thing open on June 17th or June 12th. Too many things going on. When we got done with that meeting, I can tell you that I'm pretty comfortable if everything in these documents is for the most part done by June 12th. Mainly the signage. I'll get to the emergency response stuff in a minute, but mainly that the signage is done so we have a safe environment. People know how to get to the trailhead. They know how to use the facility. The thing is being, we're paying attention to it so we don't have unsafe conditions out there. I talked about, where are the bathrooms? How's that all work? And that's why Donna from the Discovery Center is here, because they're playing that part of the thing. They're going to kind of be part of the trailhead and helping people get pointed in the right direction, as well as providing bathrooms and doing some garbage pickup and stuff like that, being part of the everyday operation. Jumping ahead, after we got done with that meeting, I then asked Bill to set up another meeting with Chief Brown, obviously our fire chief, and Roland Schoen with the ambulance crew. And quite frankly, asked him right out, you comfortable with this? They both feel that, and I won't speak for them, I'm going to let everybody talk in this, but they both felt that we could be ready by June 12th. Roland hopes to put on a training prior to June 12th. I think he said towards the end of May. He wants to get everybody out there in the open air with a big map, talk about access points, where you can get ambulances, where you need ATVs, where you have to go on foot with special devices to try to get people. We talked about if somebody, God forbid, goes off a cliff, how we're going to do that. And even though we're not up to speed ourselves in Chisholm yet, there's numerous agencies such as St. Louis County Rescue Squad, and I believe the Hibbing Fire Department has some of that stuff available for some of those type of rescues. And we did have a situation like this a few years back when we had an individual fall into the mine pit on the east side of town. So some of that has already been tested to see what kind of response we can get out of that. I can tell you that in, talking to Bill and Larry, and I'm going to let them talk next, but from my standpoint, I believe that at least all the gears are in motion to get this thing open by June 12th. Obviously, from my standpoint, signage to keep this safe and so people know how to use the facility. And then we need to be up to speed on, recovering injured individuals. Those would be, in my opinion, the two critical factors here. Those would be the two critical factors. I would recommend we approve this project tonight so they can keep moving forward and doing what they're doing. Obviously, June 11th or 10th or something, we got to walk the thing. We got to make sure we're really ready, because, like I said, we got to have a safe environment out there. Ultimately, the city is ensuring it. Ultimately, the city is responsible for what's going on out there. In your packet, one of the last items is a logo that the IROC group put together. It's the logo they would like to use out there. Since they're going to be basically the feet on the ground helping us run that facility, I certainly am not going to tell them that, I disagree with that decision. Pete mentioned in our conversation that he would be looking at, selling items with those logos on and using, profits or whatever towards, things that need to be done at the park itself. So with that said, let me let, Bill, Larry, why don't you chime in now? Tell me, you guys were in both of the meetings with me. Is that a pretty good representation? Did I miss anything? And then we'll let our representatives, maybe I'll let the IROC group talk, Mr. Plummer talk, Discovery Center talk, Roland talk. So, Bill, Larry, either one of you want to chime in?
I thought it was great. I thought you pretty much covered everything.
Larry,
there'll still be some questions, but that was great.
The two items I brought up, signage and our emergency, that's basically the main things where you're concerned as well?
Yeah.
We're really ready to go. Okay.
Yeah.
Mr.
Bill?
Mayor, I
Yes.
have a question.
Yep.
Mr. Councilor Campbell, on fencing, because you talked to me about fencing, it says there's 11 locations that consist of breaches and damage to existing line fence, being it as aging fencing or what have you. That has to be taken care of before we go ahead with this. How are we going to make sure that those areas are taken care of and and areas are gonna be blocked off that aren't yet ready for bikers to ride.
Tracy, I'm gonna let, Pete described this pretty good, Pete Carroll, so I'll let him chime in. But I can tell you that even if we approve this tonight, Tracy, we have to go look at it. We have to go look at it before June 12th.
Perfect.
I mean,
I'd like to do
we
that.
have to make sure. We have to make sure that our signage, our fencing, I mean, it has to be done. Like I said, Pete's sitting here listening right now, and I'll let him talk in 1 second. But he mentioned the areas under construction are not going to actually be physically touching the areas of use at the beginning. These interconnect trails and things like that are going to be put in last, so they're actually you basically have to drive through the woods to get between them. So, Pete, you want to chime in a little bit on that, or Jim?
Sure.
Pete, want me to handle that one?
Oh, go ahead, Jim.
Sure. So, when we started this, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you very much. When we started this project, we had to have the mine fence statute changed, which did take place. And essentially, the amended law allows a recreational use within the mine fence area. But there are some breaches in the fence, and we have a contract with Bar Engineering, and between Bar and the mine inspector, they have identified all the areas where breaches exist and have mapped those areas. And actually, this coming Monday, we have hired a contractor to be on site to put up fence on all those areas. The St. Louis County Mine Inspector is also requiring a sign every time you enter the fence from outside the fence to inside the fence. So we have developed signage for that, and those signs are have been ordered, and we just need to put them up. They're sitting over at the Minnesota Discovery Center. And then there's one really long area at the Minnesota Discovery Center at the Glen location where there's never been any signage. And St. Louis County Mine Inspector and per statute is allowing us to put up signs in lieu of fencing in that area. And we already have those signs, we just need to put them up. We have to put a sign up every 500 feet.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. Jim, is there any, since you were talking, there anything else that I misrepresented there, or things that you would just like the additional stuff that we should be talking about? Obviously, I'll come back to you if you need to add something later as we move along. But
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I think you did an excellent job of covering all the issues. Obviously, there's different, if you have questions relating to any of those, a lot of details involved relating to any of those issues, and we're here to answer any questions the council may have.
Mr. Mayor, one more
Jim,
question.
Yes, go ahead, Tracy.
I was just going to ask our attorney if he's had a chance to look this over and what his thoughts are, if he's good with everything that they presented tonight.
Thank you, Counselor. I have had a chance, an opportunity to review the set of documents that's come out. Obviously, I have reviewed the requested amendment to the Joint Powers Agreement, and I've spoken with Mr. Manny as recently as this afternoon. From a legal standpoint, I think the council, groups are addressing all the appropriate concerns. The one issue that I did have related to warranty periods, and that's been addressed by the documents that have been provided. And I think that the manner in which it's been addressed is satisfactory as far as I'm concerned from a legal standpoint. And so with the assumption, or working under the assumption, that the signage is taken care of and that appropriate emergency response measures are put in place, I have no concerns about these documents from a legal standpoint.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian. Pete Carroll, I'm going to move to you next. Couple of things you could talk to that I think would be beneficial to the council. You talked a lot about the boots on the ground. Your group, there's three of you here, obviously, so you can all chime in. The boots on the ground, how you're going to, we talked a lot about basically day-to-day operations. You guys, in some form or fashion, are going to be around at the facility, looking for danger areas, cutting brush, weed eating, looking at spots of the trail that might need some minor repairs, things like that. You guys want to talk a little bit about that? Most people don't even know what's going to take place out there, and it sounds like you guys are going to make this your baby and really take care of it out there. So maybe talk to that a little bit.
Sure. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council, for the opportunity to present to you tonight, and thanks for working on this project as much as you have in the past. Really appreciate that. Yeah, to summarize what you're talking about, Mr. Mayor, it's all documented in the operation, maintenance, and risk management plan. What the roles of the various partners would be in operating the facility. But in a nutshell, what it is IROC, our volunteer mountain bike club, will be providing the kind of the eyes and ears, so to speak, of the city on the trail. We will be doing inspections twice a month, and we've got maintenance crews that are lined up, so they will be assigned, each month we'll have a maintenance crew identified of volunteers. They'll come out and inspect the trail a couple times a month and document those inspections on an app. Right now we're trying out a couple of different apps to see which one best suits our needs. And then while we're inspecting the trail, if we witness anything that needs to be fixed, that we can fix with hand tools, like a down tree that we can just cut down with a handsaw or a chainsaw, or fencing, or that needs to be, if a sign is knocked over, we need to put that back up, we'll do that. If we need to rake out the trail, blow leaves, weed whacking on the sides of the trail to keep the visual corridor open, those are all within the scope of our work. And so our plan is to have our maintenance crews kind of on a schedule. And Pat Cassingham, who's on the phone, is our volunteer maintenance director for overseeing those crews and making sure that somebody is available to respond to anything that gets identified, either during the inspections or if a rider brings up a question that needs to be looked at. So that's it kind of for the trails themselves. The trailhead, you will access the trails off of Highway 169. The parking location is the existing parking lot at the Minnesota Discovery Center, in particular the back parking lot, but it could overspill into the front parking lot as well. The trailhead is located right there. That's the place where you'll get onto and off of the trail. And as you mentioned before, the Minnesota Discovery Center is a partner in this too, as far as operating the trailhead. People will be able to use the restrooms there at the facility, get food and things like that when we're back and able to do that kind of thing. They've agreed to monitor and maintain the restrooms and the garbage facilities at the trailhead, that kind of thing. So boiling it down into a nutshell, IROC will do the day-to-day inspection and maintenance of the trails. Trailhead will be Minnesota Discovery Center. Really the thing that the city would be responsible for is if there are any large maintenance activities that the club can't perform because we don't have the equipment to perform it. We don't have motorized equipment and that sort of thing. During the design refinement period, which is 3 years after the park is completed, so that will be at the end of this construction season, so 2021, 22, and 23, there will be money available in the original grant that was given to the project that could be accessed for some of those contractor type maintenance activities. So that's how we're planning to cover that over the immediate period after construction. And then typically in our discussion with other groups that, other cities that operate these, after 3 years, a lot of the kinks are kind of worked out of the system. And so there may be time to time when contractor crews with equipment need to be mobilized to the site, but it shouldn't be as it would be expected in the first 3 years. So that's why that design refinement period has been identified to be 3 years in duration.
Okay, thank you, Pete. Anybody else from IROC want to chime in on anything that was missed there?
I'll chime in quickly, Mr. Mayor. First of all, Mr. Mayor and council members, just want to say thank you for working with us through all of this. The support between Larry and Bill has been great. And this is a big project and it's been a lot to undertake. And we feel that we've put a lot of good ideas together, and we hope that you'll, continue to partner with us, and we'll happily answer any other questions you have. So thank you.
Benji, your letter, this letter that we start our packet off with makes a lot of sense. Most people wouldn't know that, we're trying to pack the trail. And we're trying to pack the trail while we still have the construction crew here to see if packing the trail is going to be enough. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Tires on the ground are very beneficial in making sure that we have a good product for many years to come.
Okay. We do have Donna Johnson from the Minnesota Discovery Center in here as well. Good evening, Donna.
Good evening.
Donna, anything you want to add as far as, like I said, you're going to be a big part of helping us on a daily basis, which obviously we certainly appreciate you as well, because that's going to be the biggest thing, is trying to get people pointing in the right direction when they show up there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they covered it pretty well. We'll have our restrooms open during our regular business hours for all trail users to use. We're installing new water fountains that will accommodate water bottles, and we're hoping to have rentals right on site for bike rentals. And then our restaurant and our food truck open soon once we get the clear to open up business back up. But I just appreciate everybody's work together on this. I think it's really going to impact both Chisholm and MDC and the mountain bike community greatly. And we just hope to partner the best we can. If there's anything you need from me, just let me know. But we'll take care of garbage, parking, signage through the park, and whatever else is needed. But just want to thank everybody for their partnership and time in this very important project.
Thank you, Donna.
Mayor, I could comment just briefly from Public Works about the maintenance. I know there was some conversation last meeting. I do anticipate a little bit of workload probably for myself, but like stated in that first 3 years, probably just some scheduling and working with Benji and Pete and maybe Jim and some of these other folks that are involved. But there's a lot of passion behind the project in their group. So and I've made it known in many different meetings that I'll never be the guy with all the passion for the bike park over there, the Redhead. So all the grants and all that stuff, I expect IROC to do all that. And in the future, I think there'll be more groups when they talk about getting the high school teams going. And then maybe I know the folks up there at 30 West, they talked about like a Tuesday and a Friday night bike ride type deal. So then they have their groups and they're doing stuff. And I don't really ever expect the city to be, we'll have some budget up there, I'm sure, and some workload, but I don't expect us to be running a bike park like as our business in public works. So I really, there's a real energetic group behind this whole thing. And just like the ATV trail, the ATV trail has been in Chisholm for, 10 years now. And, really it's really not a lot of, I don't think it's any work to the city basically besides some paperwork, and that, and being the fiscal agent. And I kind of see this being the same thing eventually in the long run.
Thank you, Larry. I see that there's, the hours for the Minnesota Discovery Center and the hours for the trail itself or the park are going to be different. Thoughts on restrooms and things like that when it's closed from the IROC Group Discovery Center?
Who wants to go? I know we
Go ahead,
talked about
Donna.
putting restrooms or biffies out there for after hours. I'm not sure exactly, maybe Pete knows more on that thought, but we're open till, well, at least 5 every day and some nights 9. So, and the trails are open during daylight hours from sunrise to sunset. So there'll just be a minimal overlap with us being closed, but I know we did talk about putting biffies out there.
Okay, good. So let's roll Roland and Bob in now. Starting with Roland. Roland, did I kind of represent the whole emergency personnel and emergency response thing? Okay, you got something you want to add to that as well?
Yeah, you basically said just like what we had told you last week. The ambulance is always ready to handle anything that comes to our area. This is going to require us to actually get eyes on the trails out there so everybody has an idea what the trails look like, how some are narrow, some are wider, where we need to use the ATV to get to a patient. So the other really important part out there is the signage. So when the signage comes available, that's gonna, I'll need an email for that to know what the signage looks like on the trail. And then I think it was Pete that was talking about the maintenance. Maintenance is going to have some kind of an app. Would that app also have trail markers on it?
Yes. So it'll have an ability to know what trail you're on. If you're navigating with the app, and the apps could be like trailforks.com is a common one. It's one of the ones that we're considering for guiding our maintenance activities. It'll have the trail that you're on, the name of the trail, and the difficulty, and it even plots, if you're using it as a rider, it plots your location on that trail. So that would be available also to you as emergency responders. You could be accessing the app and it would help you navigate to any portion of the park that you'd like to.
Okay, yeah, that actually would be a big help because we do have cell phones in each ambulance where people could just rapidly access those through those apps. Each rider will then be able to download that app too and know just exactly where they are should they need an ambulance, and they could give that pinpoint to the 911 dispatch for where they're at. Is that correct?
Yeah, they'll be able to identify the trail and they'll have a dot. I'm not sure if you can pull coordinates off of Trail Forks or not, but we can look into that. One of the other things that we're talking about doing is having some sort of numbering system or some sort of identification system for the wayfinding signs. So as you're riding through the trail system, there'll be a sign to say, this is the trail that you're on, this is the difficulty level, this is for biking and foot use, no ATVs or motorcycles on this trail. And then if there's a unique identifier that we could put on there, then that would allow somebody calling in to say, oh, I'm on Orange Crush Trail near sign number 12, and that'll tell you where they are if you can't pull it off of an app.
Sure, perfect. I think that would be a real beneficial thing for us to have. And I'm also the one that emailed the three of you, Benji, Pat, and yourself, about the training that we would be doing out there, either the end of May or the first weekend of June. And you guys already replied to me, thank you very much for that, that you're gonna actually be there that first weekend in June doing maintenance anyway. So I'll try and get our group set up to do a training there that first weekend, starting at noon, right after you guys come off the trail, so that you can kind of give our whole crew a little bit of an idea of where the trail is going and how the signage works. So, okay. Yeah, that would work out perfectly, I think. So we'll just plan on that first weekend of June. Since you're already going to be there, it's best just to put things in place where there's already things happening. So
yep,
perfect. And I did go to Barks Design about a month and a half ago already, and had them make us a 3-foot by 4-foot sign of the trail itself for our training purposes, so that we would have an 8.5 by 11. You really don't see everything that you need to see. So he kind of blew that up for us. So if you do need more maps, bigger maps, he'll have those in his system there if you need them. But I'm going to bring one of those with us that day. So yeah, we already purchased it.
And we can have updated large format maps that we can plot at bar also if need be for
sure
purposes. Yep.
Okay. And by then you should probably know by then which app you're actually going to use for the trailhead or for the trail.
Yeah, Trail Forks for sure we will be using, and that's the navigation app. We're going to be using that for our maintenance coordination, or if we're going to use another app for the maintenance coordination remains to be seen. But we know we're going to be using Trail Forks for sure, and that's I would say probably the most common app that's used across the mountain biking industry. So for those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's a free application you can get on your mobile phone. You download a whole state at a time, and it will display all of the mountain bike trails in the state, and it automatically geolocates you with your phone on that app. And now after this meeting, assuming everything gets approved and you're fine with moving ahead, we'll go ahead and push the mapping that we have of the system onto that app, so that people who are out there doing maintenance and beginning to get trained on the project will immediately have access to that. So you'll have a little bit of time to play around with it and get familiar with it.
Perfect. Yeah, that's all good. That's all I had, unless somebody has a question for the ambulance service.
I think Roland too, I was thinking that app sounds great for us. And then being able to identify if that's near the Glen location versus the northern side of the trails would be benefit for us, on which side we're going to send that ambulance and rescue equipment.
Yeah, and for staging areas if we need to call a outside resource. And yeah,
correct. The county rescue squad will be automatically paged until we call them off, or once we have the patient in the ambulance. The other question I have, anytime you had any major weather, would be a time to trigger an inspection. Like if we had a major rain or something, just would be nice to see that. Are we going to discuss the topic of housing an ATV if we acquire one, Mayor?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Bob, what was about
Well, our concern is, you know, we're looking at purchasing some equipment to be used out there in case of an emergency, ATV, some other equipment. So we're wondering about housing it locally for use. Thoughts on that from IROC?
Mr. Mayor, do we have to do that now? I mean, don't we have time to do that once we figure out if we're going to order it? I think tonight we should probably just figure out if we're going to do this or not, and we can work on all them other little things later, you know? What are you looking for tonight now? Are you looking for us to pass or just go?
Well, here's the deal. I think the main things, we need this, the last item, which is the amendment one, which is an amendment to our joint powers agreement. And we need to approve basically item number 4, which is, it's basically how the whole operation, maintenance, and risk management plan is going to go together. I think those are the two main components, right, Bill? That is correct, Mayor.
Are you looking for approval for the council to give its blessing on opening on the 12th of June too, or?
Yeah, but I would add to that, you know, I mean, we got to make sure, it's got to have a final inspection a day ahead of time. I mean, like you said, my main concern are, you know, the signage is, you know, 95% done. You know, you always have something that you need to finish, no matter how perfect you are. Our rescue effort program is 95%. We got it pretty much figured out. Obviously, things like rescuing people, you find out how you need to do things different on each rescue. There's no way around that. You know, and then, you know, my biggest concern would be their boots on the ground need to be obviously communicating with, you know, I would say Larry Folstead would be our guy, our boots on the ground. I mean, you know, on a weekly basis, we got to know what's, you know, how things are going out there and things like that. So, yeah, like I said, I recommend we allow them to look at that June 12th opening date. You know, contingent on that, we got proper signage and we you know, we got a safe environment we're opening to, and we have a pretty good understanding about how we're going to get people out of there if somebody gets hurt. I mean, if the group that's on here, the IROC group, the Discovery Center, Mr. Plummer, can say, you know, that's our goal too, to have that all done for you by June 12th, my recommendation would be to let's get these things approved and we'll move forward.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Whoever wants to answer this, I don't care, IROC, Mr. Plummer, Roland, Bob, I don't care who does it, but the app sounds great, but is there some kind of thing the city or a partner in this can buy that the bikers could take with them that, God forbid, one of them gets knocked out or worse, and they can't use the app? Like a button or something that would automatically call 911 for them? Is that an option, or?
There are, I can take the first approach to that. And we don't have a specific item that you can check out that I'm aware of here, but there is commercially available. You can get helmets for mountain biking that are connected to your phone. So if if that's a concern of yours, you can, if the helmet detects that you crashed, it will call 911 on your behalf. That's, some people in the mountain biking industry are using that. I'm not sure, Benji or others, if you've got other information to add to that. That's my first comment on that question.
Yeah, I'll chime in, Mr. Mayor, Councilor Varda. So in my day job, I work at Giants Ridge, and we also operate a mountain bike park. And I think two things. First of all, kind of what Pete said, I don't know of any kind of silver bullet like you're talking about, but I think the biggest thing is oftentimes mountain bikers tend to ride in groups or in pairs. Not that you can't go out by yourself, but oftentimes you're riding with a friend or a group of friends. And so, you know, likely there's going to be someone there to help you. But also, the thing that we found in 3 years of operating a bike park at Giants Ridge is, for the most part, the injuries that are sustained aren't as bad as you might think they would be. A lot of times it's scraped elbows, you know, or you know, cuts and abrasions, but you don't see broken bones as often as you would think. So, you know, the risk factor is there, but it's not like people are trying to launch themselves off the side of a cliff down to the bottom of the pit. So I think the best option is utilizing the app, having the good signage in place. That's probably the number one way that we get calls at the Ridge, is people will say we're at access point, you know, R3, and that's how we find them. So, you know, I think the good signage, I think the app, you know, that's pretty much industry standard at any bike park.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jim, for cutting you off.
As most people know, I'm not for this bike park. So all I've been told for 3 years is that there's no other park like this anywhere. So I'm quite sure taconite's going to do more than give you an abrasion. I don't know. You could ask Councilor Campbell. She knows about taconite. So I'm assuming this is a different style park than most.
I mean, to that point, it's unlike any others, being that you're down in the pit, but there are others that are similar to it, both being Cuyuna and Tioga, to our west. And, you know, I can say that I have gotten some abrasions at both of those places, but in 12 years of riding bikes, you know, I've never once broken a bone, knock on wood. Yes, there will be broken bones, but it isn't as common as you'd think. I know that's hard to believe, but it really is mostly cuts and abrasions and that sort of thing is the largest group of injuries.
Okay.
This is Pete. I can mention one other thing, and that is in the signage plan, we identified a list of signs that'll be displayed at the trailhead, and one of those is recommending use of protective equipment, you know, helmets and things like that. So it puts that warning out there to the public that, you know, you are engaging in an activity that can result in injuries. Protect yourself. And so we're putting that out there in a similar way that it's signed at other facilities that are operated similarly.
All right, so the big question, Jim, Donna, Benji, Pete, Pat, Roland, Bob, are we going to be ready on June 12th? We're going to have this thing ready to roll. How does everybody feel? We're going to have the signage up. We're going to have a safe environment to bike in. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just add one thing. We've talked a lot about signage, and we've put together a very elaborate signage plan for the project. And
Yep.
That signage is going to kind of evolve in time. We plan to have a very nice trailhead, you know, nice signage at the trailhead, and wayfinding and intersection signs and so forth. But not all of that signage will be ready by June 12th. Our plan is to have enough signage on the trail so people know where they are if they're not using the app. But I just want to make it clear, and Pete put that plan together, and if you could add to what I'm saying, Pete, I just want to make sure people understand we're not going to have, you know, every sign that we've outlined in the signage plan ready on the 12th. We plan to have enough signage out on the trail so people know where they are and that it's safe.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Hey, you stated it well, Jim, that some of the signs, you know, the fancier, more artistic signs that we anticipate putting along the trail will be something that gets completed at the end. But there will be a key number of signs at intersections so that you'll be able to navigate your way safely back to the trailhead. And there will be a key number of signs on the trails themselves, what we're calling wayfinding signs, that'll identify the difficulty of the trail that you're heading onto and things like that, so that people know what they're getting into. And I should mention one other feature that's a design feature in the trails that they're called gates. So as you're biking down the trail, let's say you're on a beginner trail and there's an advanced trail that veers off on the side. The advanced trail, in order for you to even get onto it, you need to navigate an advanced feature. And so that automatically provides like a guide to the people who are riding. They look at that feature and they know if that's not a problem for me, I can navigate over that and I'll be fine on that trail. But if you look at it and you think, oh, I'm not ready for that, then that automatically keeps you off of that trail. So signage is one feature that will allow people to know the difficulty, but these gate features at the front end of each trail will also be another feature that are designed for putting you on the right trail when you're having the riding experience.
And the other thing, Mr. Mayor,
For Pete or Benji, have you guys thought about cameras out there?
I can take a first comment on that. Ideally, we would be interested in getting some trail counters. Maybe a camera could go along with the trail counter at some point. We haven't, because that's kind of an ancillary feature or something we would normally put in at the end. We haven't got that in our scope right now, but I think it would be a great idea to have something like that as we get to the finalization period of this park.
Council, other questions?
I got something, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
Hey, one of the things we're talking about with wayfinding and the trail gates and everything else seems to be a little further down the way. We're talking about what are we going to have in place for signage for June 12th? And I know we've talked about we're going to have the basics. Well, we just need the basics. I don't need to offend anybody, but since my first meeting over at the Discovery Center about the trail, we talked about the city's risk involvement. We had talked about signs saying under construction or, trail closed. So if we give them the go-ahead to open up June 12th and we find something to say, okay, we're not ready to open June 12th, what are we going to do to stop people from using the trail? Because nothing's been done to stop people up until now. There's people out there every single day, every year and a half. I have not gone out there and I've not seen one trail close sign. I've not seen one trail under construction sign. So now you're telling me in the next 30 days, we're going to have a trailhead. We're going to have enough markers to make people feel safe. That's the biggest issue. So, if we even came back, there's 3 more council meetings before June 12th. I would like to see something in place or some kind of action being done. Everything's on paper and it looks very good. And I know the economic impact that this is going to bring. It's going to be great for Chisholm. It's going to be great for our businesses. I believe there's inherent risk that the riders know that they're going to be taking. But, I really think that we need to be shown something, some action as far as signings going up.
Well, Adam, and I think they said they're going to have the signage that they believe will be adequate to make sure it's a safe environment before they open.
That is true, but we were also told they were going to have trail close signs up 8 months ago before the fall hit, and we never saw those. So I'm saying I'm all for it. We can move this along, but if June 10th we come out there and you guys or the council decides you're not ready, I would expect Jim, Pete, Pat, or Benji to be standing out there with a sign turning people away.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Campbell.
Yep.
Can we just approve it contingent upon adequate signage that we feel is going to work for a safe environment
Yes.
So what are you looking for tonight? Are you looking for us to make a motion? Because I'll make that motion to accept the amendments for item number 1, approve item number 44, communicate with the city on a weekly basis, approve this June 12th opening contingent upon adequate signage and a safe environment. That's my motion.
Hold on a second. Let me make sure I got all. Okay, so now we have to approve amendment number 1. Was that part of your motion?
Yes.
Okay, and item number 4, which is operation, maintenance, and risk management plan.
Yes.
And the June 12th opening is contingent on
Correct.
that, you know, they create a safe environment for the people out there,
And
basically.
adequate signage for that concern that Adam has.
Okay,
I'll support that motion.
any other discussion while we have the folks here?
Yeah. I would like to, I am going to support the motion, but I would like it to be contingent upon us as the city council going out there and actually seeing the signage before we allow it to be open. So whether we have to do 2 groups or create a special meeting to go out there and walk it with Larry, Jim, Bob, everybody. And then all of us can honestly say we approve it because we've seen it.
Mr. Mayor, my motion was contingent upon the city approving the adequate signage and stuff. So that would be whatever deems necessary, whether you want to walk in with whoever, but that's what my motion was.
Okay, so we do have motion and support to allow this to move forward, allow the June 12th opening contingent, obviously, on the proper signage and the getting this thing actually ready. Any other discussion? Bill, are we who is that?
Brian Lindsay.
Go ahead, Brian.
Thanks, Mayor. Mayor, what I would suggest, having heard the motion, I may suggest splitting these into 2 because I think we may have a complicating factor here. If you look at the First Amendment to the Joint Powers Agreement, the specific language of that agreement in section 2, it amends section 2.3 of the original. It says approximately 16.7 miles of the Redhead project were completed in 2019 and will be open to the public on or before June 12th. And so that language could contradict the contingency language that's built into the motion. The way we could address that, though, is one of the inherent authorities is once these trails are turned over to the city, which this would be pursuant to the powers agreement, if the trail's not ready, the city can just say we're shutting it down. So I think we've got to be careful about building a contingency into the motion when the language is clear that a fact will exist.
Okay, so Brian, help me with this. What do you want? What do you think? I had trouble hearing there, so I missed a little bit of it. But so what do you want? You want to start with amendment number 1, and what do you want the motion to be? That we just approve amendment number 1? Because the wording's already in there?
Right. I think what we would do is we could have a motion to approve amendment number 1 with the understanding or reserving the right that the city would close the trail immediately if or not open the trail to the public if it's not deemed ready for use. Because amendment 1 contemplates per its terms turning that trail over to the city and having it opened up. But the city has an inherent right to close those trails down if we find a feature or a fact that makes it unsafe.
Okay. Margaret, do you understand what Brian said there? If I have my motion maker and supporter change their original motion to that?
Yes.
Tracy?
Mr. Mayor, I'll amend my motion to accept amendment number 1 with the right to reserve, with our right to keep the trail closed if we deem it not being ready for use. Is that correct, Brian?
Correct.
Adam, I think you made the second.
I'll amend my motion, my second.
Okay. Okay, so let's vote on this first and then we'll come back on the other item. Margaret, is there anything else, Council? Margaret, could you take a vote on that, please?
Counselor Lance,
Aye.
Counselor Fountain,
Aye.
Counselor Vaki,
Aye.
Counselor Varda,
Nay.
Counselor Campbell,
Aye.
Mayor Champa.
Aye. Okay, that motion passes. Bill, I'm going to have you chime in now. The other item we need to talk about, this Operation Maintenance Risk Management Plan. Are you of the opinion we could accept this all as one item?
And I'll state my opinion, Mr. Mayor, then I'll ask for Brian's clarification. The way the document is written, it's a document with 3 attachments. And so when you look at it in totality, it is one document that includes the 3 attachments. Those attachments being the emergency management plan, the Minnesota Discovery Center plan, so to speak, and then the combined agreement between the city, the Discovery Center, and IROC, the maintenance agreement on who's going to do what. So basically, it is one agreement with 3 attachments, and I look for Brian's opinion if I'm correct or not.
Mayor, Mr. Manny, you are correct, and that's what I would suggest, is that this could be brought forward with one motion unless there's disagreement between the individual attachments, which at that point then they would have to be brought forward individually. But I would think that this could be brought forward as one document for approval.
Thank you, Brian and Bill. So I would, make the recommendation we approve this Operation Maintenance and Risk Management to basically finalize this plan.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
The motion was made by Councilor Campbell. Second for that?
Second, Fountain.
Councilor Fountain. Further discussion, Council? Okay, Margaret, could you take a vote? I didn't hear anything there.
Counselor Lance,
Aye.
Counselor Fountain,
Aye.
Counselor Vaki,
Aye.
Counselor Varda,
Nay.
Counselor Campbell,
Aye.
Mayor Champa.
Aye. Okay, that motion passes. I think that's all we need to do on this. I thank all of IROC Group, Discovery Center, Jim, Roland for coming on this. We're really looking to you guys right now to just get this thing up to snuff so that on the 12th, we're all comfortable opening it up. This is your guys' passion, most of you, so I believe you will. So, and then moving forward, the biggest thing is going to be communication between the city and the other groups involved. So if you want, feel free to chime in and then we'll move on.
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, Benji, for your club, I just asked that, I know you guys are going to kind of run the show for this thing, which is great. And I respect that, and I'm glad you're going to do that. But can you, when you have events or when you're planning something or anything like that, can you please email us counselors, because all of us, are advocates for the city, and I share a lot of things on Facebook, and if I don't know about something or if I don't have that information, I can't help you out, with getting people there and things like that. So if you guys can keep us in the loop on those things, I would personally appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. We will be sure to include the city and the council in all of those communications and club events, recognizing that it takes all of us to make this work. So, absolutely.
Anybody else before we move on?
Yeah, you should also advise the ambulance and the fire department if you're having a group out there as well. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Roland.
I thank all of you for coming on tonight. This was a good discussion. We're looking forward to getting this thing opened and get people in the town using it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, councilors. We look forward to showing it off to all of you.
All right, guys, we'll move on to reports then. Let's start over on the right-hand side. Councillor Varda, your report tonight?
Real short one, just about the fire department stuff. We've had 5 incidents to date this month and 60 total for the year already. We have 2 anniversaries this month, this month. Mike Nadeau, who also is a brand new father, has 8 years on the fire department, and Stephanie Holloway has 14 years. That's it.
Thank you, Jim. April, report?
No formal report, Mayor.
Councillor Baki, report?
I guess I'll take April's position tonight. Yes, I have a few things. First of all, I want to say thank you to Bob Byrne, the fire department and the police department for being part of the schools, the elementaries drive by and say hi, and then also the senior recognition this morning. They picked up their cap and gowns. So we really appreciate the fire and police for being part of that, making it special for the kids. Second thing for me is calendar parking. My plan is to meet with Larry and Vern just to gather some ideas from them. Larry and I have talked already, and then once the 3 of us meet, I'll call. I'm going to set up a meeting with Bob and Jim and the other groups for that. Just a quick update there. I want to say thank you to the community members who reached out to me via email about the lake walking path and a few other things. I just want them to know I have forwarded their information on if I couldn't answer it, and I'll be in touch with them. Jim Johnson, I don't know if he's on here or not, but I do want to set up a walkthrough with you and Larry and the 8th Street project engineer, because I feel like there are definite spots that need to be repaired during this insurance period of 1 year, grace period that we have for that. The EDA credit line is available for businesses. That is up and running. It's been shared on Facebook. So if small businesses need access to that, it is available. And finally, today we had a community foundation meeting, and I'm happy to report that grants were approved for $10,000 for the Zamboni, $7,250 for the warming shack project, and $4,400 to the ambulance to help with rescue equipment, along with numerous other grants, but those affected the city, so I felt I should mention those. That is all I have.
Council, any questions on any of that? Travis, I'd just like to say congratulations on your new employment. It's nice you got graduated from college. You got yourself a job relatively quickly. Nice. Good for you.
Thank you.
Councillor Campbell, report?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I too want to congratulate Travis on your new employment. Congratulations, Travis. Also, I'm going to give a little ambulance report. First quarter for this year. I finally got it now, so I'll just go ahead and read some of this off real quick. So for the first quarter for the ambulance, they had 3 cancellations, 20 no loads, 121 residents, 15 were non-residents, 7 from Balkan, 8 from the Side Lake area, 0 from the unorganized townships, 4 mutual aids with Buell, 2 mutual aids with Hibbing, for a total of 180 quarterly total run so far this year versus 191 last year at this time, so it was down just a little bit. If you have any questions for me, that's all I have tonight.
Council, anything for Tracy?
No questions, but thank you, Tracy.
You're welcome, Travis.
Councillor Lance, report?
Yeah, no formal report, but I'd just like to thank the fire department men and women for doing the drive-bys for the kids and the parents, the adults, you know, the birthdays coming up. So thank you guys very much. And just a big shout out to our department. A lot of things have happened in the past month, and they've gone above and beyond, showing their compassion and their empathy to people and helping out in different situations. So there's not a group that I can be more proud of being part of. So thank you all very much for being fine examples. Also, I just seen right now, no two people agree of what's going on, the way society's running, the way government's running. So I can just ask that people be respectful of everybody else. They make things a lot easier. You know, just it's fine what you're doing, but just be respectful. Somebody might be feeling otherwise than you. So, you know, just be cognizant of everybody else's feelings and wishes. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Adam. You know, I don't have a real report other than, you know, it's nice that we now have the campground under our control. You know, Larry and his crew are up there, you know, basically making repairs we think are kind of critical to a city owning it as opposed to a private individual, just to make our life a little bit easier up there. You know, Bill is working with our gals in the office to try to figure out how we're gonna basically check people in and out. The lock-ins are helping us out there right now. We hope to, within a month or so, we take over all of that from them. You know, little things you don't think about, like firewood. I connected Larry with somebody I knew that does firewood. He's going to look at prices on that kind of stuff to see. People buy firewood for their campsites up there, so we're going to be, well, that's going to be one of the little items that we have to keep providing now that the lock-ins are out of it. So overall, I think it's going good. We're working to try to get those trailer houses out and one piece of equipment that's in there. Things like fire pits and stuff that I believe, you know, we need upgrades up there. Larry's looking into different things there. So all good things. Looking forward to getting this country back open again so we can get back to normal. But like I said, we're kind of at the mercy of the governor because you know, our law enforcement is pretty much required to follow the governor's orders. I could be wrong on that, but until somebody challenges the governor, his word is pretty much law. So we kind of get in a tight spot trying to vary from that too much. So it's really all I have. But happy we finally got that campground, I can tell you that. Happy that we waded through this bike park. I think that's going to be a good thing as well. So anything on that, Council? All right, we'll move on. Building official, Mandy, are you on tonight?
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. Yes, I am here tonight. I have no formal report. I do have 3 items on the agenda for approval, and we can discuss those when we get to the agenda.
Thank you, Mandy. Council, anything for Mandy? Let me just say too, I appreciate that all my staff people, for the most part, are on here unless they have some engagements they need to be at. You know, with the council not being able to really, you know, see you face to face and stuff, this sometimes is the only, especially working from home and stuff, this may be the only chance you get a real good chance to talk to you. So publicly anyway, so this is good. Is Jim on tonight?
I'm here, Mayor.
Jim, do you have a report tonight?
Just very quickly, we held a pre-construction conference at 1 o'clock today on our 4th Avenue mill and overlay, our reconditioning project, as well as that overlay on the pickleball courts. The contractor, his subcontractor, anticipates being in here next week to do the milling, but then at the city's request, because we've got to change out some or rebuild some storm sewer structures and take care of a couple sanitary sewer repairs, we're looking at probably about mid to latter part of June when they'll come in and do the resurfacing. But that was pretty much at our request. Otherwise, they'd have come in and done it all at one time, and then we'd have been opening it up. So They were very cooperative in that regards. The other project, our public safety building water main loop project, we're holding the pre-construction conference on that next Wednesday morning at 11 o'clock. And with that, that's all I have. Be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Council, questions for the engineer?
I have a question for Jim, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilor Varda.
Hi, Jim. How are you?
I'm good, Jim. How about you?
Good. Who is the subcontractor again for the 4th Avenue job or 4th Street job?
Let me look it up, Jim. I don't know. I don't remember right off the top of my head. Let me go grab the information.
Is it KGM? I thought it was KGM myself.
Oh, they're the contractors. I thought he was asking for the subcontractor doing the reclaiming.
Oh, yeah, that's who I was asking for.
The prime or the sub, Jim?
The sub.
Okay, let me look it up and then I'll jump back in at some point when I get the answer for you.
Okay.
Thank you. Public Works, Larry?
All right, how's that? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I still have signal problems at the Public Works garage here. We're working on it. So if I'm in and out, I apologize. I was in and out at our staff meeting. Anywho, I'll start off with just to follow up what Jim said there. I guarantee I'm going to get calls and you're all going to get calls. 4th Avenue is going to be rough for a while. They're going to come in and mill it. And, you know, you're going to have those intersections that are going to have those 2-inch drop-offs and stuff. But we really got to get in there and get our work done when it's milled. You know, we don't want to 2 or 1 or 3, 4, whatever years later want to go and cut up our beautiful pavement to do our repairs. So we need time to do those repairs, and we got small crews, and we're short on manpower right now. So people are not going to be happy, but it's just, I don't know. There's just no other solution. I just want to give all the councilors and Mr. Mayor, everybody, Administrator Manny, a heads up that people are just going to have to slow down and take alternative routes, and we'll get through it. It's going to stretch, as a reminder, all the way from 8th Street Northwest to 6th Street Southwest, and it's a heavily traveled area, and it's going to be rough for a while.
Is that it?
All right. So casual laborers, we have right on. Okay, I can be done.
No, I'm kidding.
No,
Go ahead.
just a few updates because I know you're all curious. The casual labor started this week, and then we have a group starting next week that's going really well. We're doing our social distancing, and if we have to ride in the same vehicle with somebody else, we have our masks on, and I've instructed them to wear their mask outside in public if we have to go into a building, you know, to use a restroom or, you know, grab a pop or a donut on our break or something like that. So they have all been doing that very well so far. So casual laborers, just stop me if you need anything. And then coming soon, I'm going to work on a Public Works Facebook page to get some of these alerts and stuff out there, just like this 4th Avenue mill and overlay. That'll help. You know, I don't have direct access to the Chisholm Facebook page. And so Public Works will have a Facebook page eventually here. We'll get that out. And also, I'd like to start with advertising, which is in the council packet, is the new garbage system notice that everyone will see in their utility billing if you haven't already. Streetlight globes. Yeah, go ahead, Trace.
And make sure you use our rapid notification system for some of these things that might, you know.
Absolutely.
Too. Okay.
And I used it for our welcome to our casual laborers too. I use it for them too. So.
Okay.
The street light globes are 100% working, and it's taken us a year to get to that point. And I appreciate the council's support. And you know, one of those street light globe structures down there by Freedom, I believe, has been out for like 5 or 6 years. And we have no more yellow cones besides the nice ones that you see for our stores for the pickup locations, but no more construction barrels. All of our lights are 100% working that we know of. We had a near miss in Public Works, so we have an employee out for 2 weeks. Could have been much, much worse. And I have a little bit more of a presentation for you at the next council meeting about some tooling that we'll take out of our, we'll ask for your support out of our capital vehicle money, and we'll get some tooling that we could have had many years ago. And I know briefly, I'll just give, because I know you're curious, we had an employee that was adjusting the forks on a loader, and these are very heavy and awkward, and you have to shimmy them across, but they have hydraulic ones, and we just don't have that. But we need to get that so we're not hurting our employees, and we got the right tool to do the job. It's a job that we do often, so it just makes sense, and I'll have a better presentation for you at the next council meeting. I just couldn't get it all together in time. So Public Works is down 2 employees right now. We have one out on a medical that's been out since earlier in the year, and then this is number 2, so we're down 2 right now. I think I have in the council packet. Yep, the campground. Campground's been going well, as Mayor Champa alerted to here. We've just been making little upgrades and stuff up there. We're building some supply and, drip here and a hole there, that type of thing. So, and we have a demo on Thursday for a new reservation center. Everything is online now. People want to pay with credit card and reserve online and see the reservations. And we're just exploring. We're just seeing what's out there. This one on Thursday is called Camp America, and that's what the Forest Service uses and some other private campgrounds around northern Minnesota. So it's one that we just want to see this 15, 20-minute demo and just see what's out there. We continue to have our spring wildlife problems on the lakes. We got geese and beaver problems right now. So we're working towards solutions for both of those. And unless there's questions, I have a couple things in the packet for you.
Council, anything else for Larry?
Thank you, Larry.
Mayor, if I could jump in for just a minute and answer Jim Varda's question.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
The subcontractor doing the milling on 4th Avenue West is K. O'Connell Milling, and it's a 507 area code, which would be southern Minnesota. I'm not familiar with them, but they are a K. O'Connell Milling.
Okay. I was just curious because I was working in Hibbing today for KGM, where Hibbing's doing, 27 roads or something, milling and overlaying. And I talked to their foreman there, Jacob, and he said he's going to be in Chisholm next week to lower 40 different water valves or water gas valves or something. So I was just curious how that was all going to work with him being so busy in Hibbing and then next week being in Chisholm. So.
Hey, I can actually answer that question because I worked for KGM last summer. They change, usually the foremans rotate around. So if Jacob's in Hibbing this week, another foreman might go to Hibbing next week and then he'll come to Chisholm.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Larry. So we'll move on. Bob, good evening.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, Council members, City Administrator, City Attorney, and staff members. Just the Health Department, we've been very blessed. I've reported of getting some good quality training through Central Lakes campus. We've been having weekly webinars. That's helped keep our education level up. These drive-bys have been very good, both for the departments. We have to get our equipment out to get it exercised. I've been picking on some of the younger people that haven't driven some of the trucks, so it's been a benefit both ways with that. So we're happy to do those things. We've done at least a half a dozen of them. We're trying to run the department more on a formal basis this month as we did last month. And last week when we had our monthly business meeting, it takes about an hour for our monthly business meeting. And then afterwards, I opened it up. I said, everybody can unmute and let's just socialize for a while. And it was great for everybody. We got to see a newborn baby. We got to see other family members. So, excuse me, it was good for the health for all of our department. And they've asked me to host another one next week just to do a check-in with everybody. So, any questions for the department? I'll be here. We have a few things in your packet on the agenda.
Council? Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Library / gardener / landscaper, Katie. Good evening.
Yeah, hi everyone. I have no formal report tonight other than a few items on the agenda.
Council, anything for Katie? Thank you, Katie. Police Chief Vern?
Good evening. This is long enough already. I don't have anything unless anybody has questions for me.
Council?
I have a question.
I have a question too when you're done.
Go ahead, Tracy. Yours is way more important. Go ahead, Tracy.
No, it's, I'm just wondering how things are going with Buell. If you're gonna give us a report here on numbers on what you're seeing over there at all, you know, as far as,
My apology, I forgot to include those in the packet. But I do have Buell reports and nothing's really increased or decreased. Obviously, we're done with parking tickets over there. They don't do calendar parking in the summer and calls are about the same, about 40 a month, mostly medicals. Things are going well though. We're ramping up and it's going to start Blight over there as well as starting it here in our town and working well with the city and I've had some meetings with them and they're thankful for us and everything's going pretty well. So.
okay, well, one more question. So I've been getting some complaints from some citizens about outside furniture being used as patio furniture, like couches, reclining chairs. They hoard animals. I mean, you get mice in them, and I just can't believe that that's not part of our blight. Can you look into that, somebody, to see if that's allowed?
I can look into it offhand. I can think that as long as it's on porches or not being used as outdoor furniture, I don't know if it qualifies as blight or not. You know, mattresses piled up by the garage and flipped over couches and stuff where people throwing them out and they're just sitting there is one thing. You know, can obviously be something that looks like someone's going to throw away. They just haven't. But I can look at the falls underneath, but as long as it's being used, I don't know if that actually falls under the ordinance or not. Brian and I revert to Brian, but I'm sure we're both gonna have to read that statute to verify.
Well, maybe that's something that we can look at. I mean, I don't know. It's very unsightly, and I know that mice and stuff and like to live in those things. I can't believe that wouldn't be fall under some kind of blight ordinance. I don't know.
I'll look up the statute and convey with Brian.
Thank you.
And see what we can find.
Jim, did you have some?
Yeah, I just have a couple. I've noticed that the city shows some vehicles at the ambulance garage. Why is that, Vern?
Say that again.
I've noticed the city chose some vehicles at the ambulance garage. Why is it parked there now?
Those are our backup for the auxiliary ambulance in case they're needed for this COVID.
That's why it's there?
The ambulance, you remember that that meeting we had when we talked about COVID, that special meeting and Roland talking about having vehicles set up for bringing people that besides, so they don't have to disinfect the ambulance every time. So that's.
Oh, okay. All right, and just curious, does Madeline know you're using her iPad or whatever you're on?
No, she just finished her last final on Monday or Tuesday,
Okay.
So she doesn't need the computer for a little while.
Nice. All right, we'll move on then. Thank you, Vern. Tammy, Rec Director, report tonight?
Not a whole lot. Just, we got some black dirt for the football field that our casual laborers are going to be spreading out and seeding. We're looking at the low spots, trying to do little corrections since no one's using it. We got a load of red ball diamond aggregate for the baseball fields. That's, Travis, that should make you happy. We're looking at putting a little bit down on the Pergo and that lower girls softball field. I'll be doing a webinar tomorrow with the League of Minnesota Cities about playgrounds and this COVID, but that's about it unless you have any questions of me.
Council, any questions for Tammy? City Attorney, report tonight?
Thank you, Mayor. Agenda only unless there's questions for the council.
Council, questions for the attorney? Thank you, Brian. Bill, Administrator, report?
Mr. Mayor, councilors, a few items on the agenda, no formal report. I'll entertain any questions.
Council, questions? All right, we'll move on. Consent agenda. It's a list of bills. Communications, which are the fire department minutes, planning commission minutes, first quarter 2020 ambulance report, Chisholm Tribune Press notice of subscriber, or notice to subscribers, minutes of the previous city council meetings, April 14, 2020 local board of appeals and equalization, April 15, 2020 joint meeting emergency personnel, April 22nd, 2020 regular meeting, April 28, 2020 reconvened local board of appeals and equalization, payroll and overtime. I get a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'll make that a motion. This is Councillor Fountain to accept the consent agenda.
A second for that.
Councillor Lance.
Councillor Lance, any discussion or corrections? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nobody opposed, that motion carries. It's the only time I'll do that. Okay, let's go on to new business. Mandy, resolution 0520-39 land transfer for Aspen Grove. Paperwork is back for us to finalize that, I guess.
Yes, you have a resolution before you to approve the Aspen Grove land sale. The only difference in this resolution and what the council approved at the last meeting is that development plans are substantially completed within 18 months. I believe you approved 12 months at the last meeting. So the resolution does state 18 months, which has been what we have been doing in the past with other properties. So we want to keep it consistent.
I'd like to make that motion for resolution number 0520-39 for completed within 18 months rather than in 12 months that was approved previously.
Okay, is there a second for that?
I'll second that, but that was for substantial completion, not completion, correct?
Correct. Correct.
Correct.
Council, any other discussion on that item? Okay, Margaret, could you take roll call, please?
Councillor Lance.
Aye.
Councillor Fountain.
Aye.
Councillor Vaki.
Aye.
Councillor Varda.
Aye.
Councillor Campbell.
Aye.
And Mayor Champa.
Aye. Okay, that motion passes. Next item, Range Center Planning Commission request. This is coming out of the Planning Commission. Mandy?
So the Range Center applied for a plat exemption to the Planning Commission. What they'd like to do is parcel off lots to the adjoining property owners to make the adjoining property owners' lots larger. Everybody has agreed to the land sale. We did put a contingency upon further development that they add an access to the north and south of the back 40 behind the Range Center. The Planning Commission did approve this unanimously, and we're just looking for council for support.
Mandy, I have a quick question.
Yes.
With the memo from City Engineer Jim Johnson.
Yes.
With the having the only single means of access, you're saying that they will give us 2 access points then, right?
They will. They will.
This memo was developed before.
Yes, we did hold a meeting with the Range Center before the Planning Commission meeting, and they did agree to provide egress and ingress on the north and south side of the property if there were to be future development. So what would happen is it would be replatted with those access points.
Okay.
If I might chime in just a minute, April or Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, Jim.
April, what happened, they made their original submittal of the purchasing these lands by the adjoining neighborhoods, what, Mandy, about 6 months ago, or before I wrote that memo and so forth. And what was being proposed at that time would have closed off the right-of-way of what would be the extension of Winton Drive out of the Bethlehem Greens development to the north. It would have basically vacated that right-of-way, and that's what I was objecting to, because in vacating that right-of-way of what would be the extension of Winton Drive to the south, or what used to be Roosevelt Drive in that original plat, would have limited access into that remaining range center property. And I think is it 20 acres, I think, Mandy, that's vacant back there? The only other access would be via 9th Street, which is on kind of the south side of the range center property, and was just a new street put in between 8th Avenue and Center Drive here just a few years ago. But there is platted right-of-way for that extension of 9th Street to the west on the south end of this property. But that would have been the only other means of access, and that is poor planning in terms of providing emergency vehicle access, or, you know, a secondary means of access. So that was the reason I wrote the memo, such that right-of-way to the up in that northwest corner did not get vacated or closed off and sold to the property owners, because we'd have had a very hard time reacquiring that property for future right-of-way needs when they got ready to develop the rest of the property.
So we're comfortable with how everything ended up then?
Yes.
From an engineering / building official, planning and zoning angle.
Okay, Mr. Maker, I will make a motion to approve that request.
Okay, motion was made by Councillor Lance. Is there a second for that?
Mr. Mayor, I'll second that, but we should probably make note that to add the access to the north and south of the back 40 of the range center.
Right.
In the motion.
Attorney Borland did include that in the motions. There is a letter in the packet with 4 items that are included as contingency on the motion for approval. And that is one of them there.
Okay. Also, we don't need to add that because it's part of the it's part of the
Perfect.
It's part of the documentation. Would that be correct, Mandy? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it will be in the resolution.
Okay. I think we got motion by Adam and second by Tracy, so we're good there already. Any other discussion, Council? Okay, Margaret, could you take a vote, please?
Counselor Lance,
Aye.
Counselor Fountain,
Aye.
Counselor Baki,
Aye.
Counselor Varda,
Aye.
Counselor Campbell,
Aye.
Mayor Champa.
Aye. Okay, that motion passes. Last item under Mandy is a variance request from Gregory Staniger to for side easement, I think it is. Variance.
So the
Mr.
planning.
Mayor, I'll make.
Oh, sorry.
No, man, if you want to inform the council before.
I was just gonna kind of brief the council on the request. The Planning Commission heard Mr. Staniger's request for a variance to vary a 15-foot setback to a 5-foot setback for a detached garage. He does have a hardship due to an existing shed that he could not meet the 15-foot setback, and he is also on a corner lot. The Planning Commission did approve this unanimously, and we're looking for the council's support.
Okay. Also, to the best of the council, everyone on the planning commission did go and view this property, and it definitely needs a new garage. And I talked to everybody had talked to the neighbors around there, and nobody has a problem with this. So I would like to make a motion to grant that variance request of Gregory Staniger.
Second that motion.
Who, Councillor Fountain, was that you? Second?
Yes, yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so we have motion to support. Any further discussion? Okay, Margaret, could you take a vote, please?
Counselor Lance,
Aye.
Counselor Fountain,
Aye.
Counselor Baki,
Aye.
Counselor Varda,
Aye.
Counselor Campbell,
Aye.
Mayor Champa.
Aye. Okay, that motion carries. Thank you, Mandy. We'll move on to Larry. How you doing tonight? Trying to rename my campground, it looks like.
All right. We have availability in the campground. And, it would generate more revenue if it was full. So let me get to page 42 here. I have it up on my screen, but I have to stay close to my window so I get 2 bars of service. Okay, so does our campground have a name? Does the council want to name our campground so we can get it out on Facebook and out in the world and get it on Google searches and that, I guess.
I'll give you my opinion first. I like the name. So if we did change it, I would lean towards something like that second one where we just add the Chisholm on it so that it defines it. But I think Iron Trails, it's got name recognition too. I think it's been that way for a long time. So, but I understand your point that if we're going to start doing literature and websites or whatever, and putting them out, that we want to make sure we got everything all figured out. So I don't know, how's council feel about that?
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Fountain. I definitely the Chisholm Iron Trail Campground. It renames our brand, but it also keeps the old brand so people know. So I really like that second one.
Anybody else want to chime in?
Yeah, I agree. Putting our name on it is very smart. I like the second option too.
I'm good with the second.
So why don't we look at making a motion? We'll get the Chisholm added to the Iron Trail Campground. Larry can get moving on any way he wants to promote this thing for us.
Yeah, and I'll eventually have I asked Billy at Bark Design to come up with, maybe a new sign and just some stuff like that so we can start to get it out there. So I'll have to work with MnDOT, and those things take time to get the sign out on the highway. It says Good Sam right now, I believe, campground. And Good Sam is also another online reservation program that we would like to demo. I think Eileen Zah is going to take that and get that demo set up for us. And then, I'll just kind of help get the word out there, and I'll keep bringing these things to the council for your approval.
Somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make Chisholm to rebrand our campground name to Chisholm's Iron Trail Campground.
Do we need the apostrophe S on there?
Ask Travis.
Yes, I would say so.
Okay.
Support.
Good. Larry, before we vote, I just have one thing. Are you aware that we're pairing and sharing with the Museum of Mining on a couple of highway signs, and that the campground has been paying for them?
I had not heard that at all.
We're going to have to get you in touch with, that came from Denny Borich at the museum. So we're going to have to make sure. He didn't sound like it was very expensive, but that the campground has also helped when they needed to make new signs, which can be a little expensive. So
Absolutely.
we're gonna want to make sure that, and he thought that next time they need one would be a few years down the road for an actual sign. So
Okay.
but that campground's on a sign between Hibbing and Chisholm, and then I think halfway to Buell too. So
yeah, and I think it's a good time to get out there, right? And there's people. I'm on a couple. I love camping. I love, you know me. I'm outdoorsy, that type of thing. And I follow these Facebook pages and stuff. And people are looking for these places to go with the COVID, going on where you're supposed to be seasonal right now and stuff like that. So it's a good time to get it out there.
good.
Hey, let me backtrack. Hold on, let me backtrack. If you're gonna keep it plural, or you have to include the apostrophe S, but if you just wanted to say Chisholm, that would be fine too. I didn't know where you were going with that. Either one.
Yeah, I just thought if you've seen a sign, you would think it would just say Chisholm Iron Trail Campground.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
If you were going to describe it, you would say, Chisholm's Iron Trail Campground. But, as far as the name of it, Chisholm we wouldn't need it, right?
Yeah, that would be totally fine. You don't need the apostrophe S.
Okay. So who made all the motions and supports? April made the motion?
Yes.
You okay taking that apostrophe S off of there?
Yeah. amend my motion to Chisholm Iron Trail Campground.
I'll amend my second.
Okay. Margaret, could you take a roll call now, please?
Counselor Lance,
Aye.
Counselor Fountain,
Aye.
Counselor Baki,
Aye.
Counselor Varda,
Aye.
Counselor Campbell,
Aye.
Mayor Champa.
Aye. Okay, that motion passes. Larry, notice to residents for new garbage system.
Yeah, if you haven't got your utility bill yet, Administrator Manny approved the verbiage and such that you would have the notice or will have the notice in your utility billing about the new garbage system. And just a little side note that the next council meeting, I'll have some capital purchases hopefully wrapped up for you, because the business plan is just starting to come together, and it's going to be a lot of work going into the summer and into the fall to switch over the whole city and the new trucks and the training and the handheld devices and all this, the technology of it. So there's much more to come, but this is your first notice. This is the first that we can get out there to everybody and really say, you know, besides the council meetings and the budget approvals and stuff like that. So any comments, questions, feedback is appreciated. I know Facebook is a good way to get stuff out there. We just haven't gotten to that point yet. And then, you know, we tried to simplify like question and answer. You know, what do you have to do now? Nothing. This is just informational. What do you have to do next? We'll be selecting the size.
Go ahead, Councilor Campbell.
So this is no action item because it's already been in the mail. I already got mine. So this must just be informational only, I'm assuming?
It is. Yep. Oh, I apologize. I checked that.
It's checked under as an action item, so.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, so we'll move on then, Larry. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all you got on that?
That's it.
All right, good. Tammy, Summer Rec Program concerns.
Yeah, this is something I really didn't even want to bring up, but time's running. We haven't done interviews for our aides. This is for our summer rec program. Do we run the program? Do we do a wait and see approach? Concerns, you know, what if somebody comes down with COVID? Do we close the place down? Do we have to, you know, we would have to sanitize? What if our staff gets ill? Particularly our directors. Would we need to take children's temperatures before they come in? And if they do have one, a lot of times parents drop kids and leave. Field trips. In the past, we've done bowling, archery, planetarium, local playgrounds in other communities, such like that. Can we get on a bus with a bunch of kids? Can we do these field trips? If we can't, how do we keep them entertained? How do we do sports? How do we do a board game? One big thing with this program is we have the incentive program on the end where we brought the kids to the Edgewater Park. One year we didn't do an incentive program, and guess what? Those electronic devices were just always on. You really need to dangle something in front of their eyes with a 6-week program. We could reduce the program to maybe 4 weeks. Some of the problems is, you know, we have to do the interviews for the aides. They have to get in their drug screening. If they're over 18 or older, they have to do the BCA checks. Those take anywhere between 3 and 5 weeks to get back. It's all a time-sensitive thing and a lot of planning. And then training the staff with CPR. We always make sure that they're all trained with that and right to know and on the job safety. Those things could be done via computers and stuff. But I'm just looking for some direction from the council and what's
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Fountain.
I believe we shouldn't offer. I'm with you with this whole thing, the CSRP program this year. It's maybe something we can offer better for the kids after the situation is safe. Maybe we could just push and encourage families and parents to just go outside and play with their kids and be active and participate. But I'm with you, Tammy. I think we should, I feel that we should not offer the CSRP program this summer.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Campbell.
Yes, I tend to agree with that because, I mean, You know how all kids are, wiping their noses, touching things. I mean, are we gonna follow around them with, wipes all day long? And we don't have the staff to do that anyway. And with school being closed down because of the concerns that the schools have with all the children, I can't see how we would implement this program with the kids being in the same area, I'm tend to agree with Tammy this year not to offer this program.
Let me pose a question. If the governor announced tomorrow that he's opening everything up, would your opinion change?
Not for me.
Not for me either.
Okay.
So I am on the other side of the scope. Tammy, my question would be, would you consider running the program later in the summer instead of June to mid-July? Would you consider running it maybe July to mid-August? That gives us an opportunity to wait and see where things lie with the opening of things.
We usually run it, we had tentatively was for June 15th through July 23rd with the trip going to the Edge Park, July 27th. The one problem of running into August is the kids hopefully are starting school sports. And some of them are going away to college. So that can be an issue. But it is something we can consider.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know that sports don't start till mid-August, so you'd have at least a couple weeks in August. It's just a thought. Mean, that would be my approach, but.
This might be a question for the attorney, but I mean, as we are right now, we could not run this program. Brian, would that be correct? We can't have the summer youth program with the standing order of the governor as it sits right now. That would probably be a correct statement.
Absolutely, Mayor, that is a correct statement. No organized sports, no organized leagues or anything along those lines.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, are we looking for a motion?
To me, I believe Tammy can make this decision herself in her position. If you want to make a motion to stop it, I lean a little bit towards the way Travis is, in that if the governor announced tomorrow, let's open some of this stuff up and have sports and stuff, I would leave it in her hands to decide if she thinks she can do it safely. If she feels, I believe, she's kind of a supervisor in her position. So I probably wouldn't side with yourself and Councillor Campbell on this if they open things up tomorrow. Yeah.
I have a statement.
I just seen on WDIO, I just got an alert that Governor Walz is changing from stay at home to stay safe. So there's already some of them.
What was that, Larry? I didn't hear that.
I just got a flash from WDIO and it said Governor Walz is changing the stay at home order to a stay safe order. So there's already some movement on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually listened to it. He lifted the stay at home as of May 18th and allowed businesses to open at 50% capacity, except for bars and restaurants and salons, which his plan is to open on June 1st.
I have a statement about this rec program. And don't let it shock anybody. I'm totally against everybody else's opinion. But
we're not shocked.
I think we let her buck and run the program.
I agree with
We've all been living scared for too long, and I don't live scared, so I don't follow Governor Walz's rules.
Well, you have to.
I go where I want, when I want, without a mask. So,
Mr. Mayor, I don't agree with that. I'm not going to take the responsibility of somebody else's kid getting sick. I'm not having that on my end. Sorry.
I
would like to say something just for everybody that's, wanting to get a little too active, a little too quick. Everybody knows last week I drove from Yuma, Arizona to Chisholm, Minnesota. And there's a lot of graphs all over showing the death rate in Minnesota right now. And Minnesota was by far the busiest state I drove through. Every other state, it was 5-to-1 transport cargo vehicles to POVs. As soon as you cross the Minnesota border, it was 15-to-1 POVs to semis. You cannot tell that there's a shelter in place or a stay-at-home order. Minnesotans have a very hard time wearing masks in public. It's everybody's opinion. Do what you want. But, people up here in Minnesota, we were sheltered in place for the entire winter. 2 weeks ago, everybody started coming up from the cities to their cabins saying, hey, I'm home. No, you're not home. You're in our territory now. So I think there's a correlation in the travel around Minnesota that we do need to actually look at and think about. So it's just, everybody's sick and tired of it, but the numbers don't lie. We have a lot more deaths in Minnesota than we do in a lot of our surrounding states, and we've been in lockdown because people haven't been practicing. And it's just, everybody says Minnesota nice, but I think it's more like Minnesota stubborn, So it's just, I think we really need to take a look, watch your own bobber, but, be respectful of other people. Keep that physical distance and, it's not fake. People are dying. Whether or not they're dying of what, there's a large number of people who are complicated. So I think being a little too aggressive with our opening, and I'm a little more conservative than most, but I do think that we need to be respectful of other people during this situation.
So let me propose something here. I believe we're sitting here with 3 votes on each side. So what I would propose is that we allow Tammy to hold the program. If the governor loosens up the restrictions and she feels she can still do it, I believe the vote will fail 3-3, which basically means we're not holding the program. And we don't have to take any other action at that point because it didn't pass. Unless I'm wrong on how I'm counting this. If we do it the other way where we take a vote to not hold it, then that doesn't pass either if we're 3-3. And then I think it's just better to go with allowing it to open and fail that way. So I think it would be a cleaner way to do it. So, my recommendation would be allowing Tammy, if she feels she can do it, if the government lifts the order, we would allow her to. And, if it doesn't pass, we'll move on.
So with that suggestion, Mayor, do you want me to start interviews then? Because that's something that needs to be done, and then we have
Tammy,
to have...
here's what I'm thinking. If you wake up tomorrow or Friday and the governor says he's holding things off for another 2 weeks, you're probably running out of time.
Right.
And I would look to you to say that you probably got to cancel it, even if you get a positive vote right now.
Okay.
You're going to know best if you can pull this off or not, better than anybody on the council, I would think. So it really has to do with, you can't do nothing until the governor loosens something up anyway. And if you he's going to make an announcement next couple of days. And if he says we got 2 or 3 weeks or a month before something like that could ever open, it's too late anyway. Quite frankly, I heard 3 votes either way. So I don't think it's passing anyway. So
what I would like is Administrator Manny help me with the decision-making also. It's a big decision.
Well, it is because you got people on the hook, basically, if we're wondering. So, yeah.
So, Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Fountain. We're just going to give Mrs. Nevelainen the opportunity to go in the direction that she feels that is appropriate with Mr. Manny's direction as well, correct?
If she can, it's contingent on the governor. The governor says this ain't happening, for another month. Yeah, I would expect her direction is going to be, we got to pull the plug anyway. And we can't do it. If he said tomorrow, if I got 4 votes in favor of allowing her to do it, and and the governor announces tomorrow or whenever he's going to speak and says, you know what, we're going to allow you to do outdoor sports. You know, I believe I would be okay with her doing it at that point. Myself, personally, myself, I'd be okay with doing it. I feel a little bit, you know, people are going stir crazy, and if we can feel that we can do outdoor stuff safely, you know, and the governor agrees, then I would say do it. But like you said, we're in a small window here. We can't leave these people that need summer jobs on hook very long. So if this doesn't happen in a couple of weeks, I would say we got to pull the plug in. We got to pull the pin anyway and let them go get a job.
And don't forget, it's not just outside activities that we're dealing with. We're dealing with the curling club, hot weather, rain, you know, we're indoors.
Yep. I hate to shut it down when, you know, he's already opened up golf courses and disc golf courses and things like that in some parks and this. And I mean, we're probably one step away from him allowing this activity right here, possibly.
Mr. Mayor?
You know?
But those are all outside activities. Like Tammy said, a lot of this is indoor stuff that they do, and they're in closed quarters with the kids. I don't know. So what are you looking for? You're looking for a motion from us to allow Tammy to use her own discretion based upon if the governor was to open up in the next couple of weeks. I'll make that motion.
Yep, that would be my recommendation.
I made the motion.
Is there a second for that?
Support.
The motion made by Councilor Campbell, second by Councilor Lance. Any other discussion?
I have a question. I don't think I heard Attorney Lindsay correctly. He said the governor has put a stop to organized sports and organized leagues. Is that what he said?
Correct.
So Tammy, are we considering the organized sports or an organized league?
I think I read something with camps and stuff too. Do you know what I mean? We're kind of considered like a day camp, I would imagine.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be prevented right now, Jim. What Tammy would be doing here is not allowed right now. Brian said that. If Brian wants to chime in, he can, but that's basically, it's not allowed. The governor would have to change something in order for her to even pursue this at this point.
I believe my motion was if the governor was to open it up in the next couple of weeks.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I have another question for Tammy. Is 2 weeks too long? Or do you just need a week to determine?
Well, it takes time to hire. And do you want me to go ahead and interview and hire and do the wait and see approach and spend that money? Or do we wait for the 2 weeks, see what happens? Or if something's pulled before then we could start. We could just have the program just run the month of July, or, you know, shorten the program, lessen the cost.
I think Councilor Campbell's motion of waiting 2 weeks and then letting Tammy use her discretion should speak for itself. And I think we should wait before you hire. You know, I think we give it 2 weeks. You know, in 2 weeks we're in the same boat. Then Tammy's discretion should know that it's too far along to start interviews and hiring.
Okay.
Tammy, I think you're going to know more tomorrow too. Isn't that when the governor's going to speak?
He did tonight.
Oh, so I don't know what he said about that. So maybe something changed already. Okay, so we have a motion to support to allow.
Do we need a roll call?
Yes. So Margaret, why don't you take a vote? If there's.
Councilor Lance.
Aye.
Councilor Fountain.
Aye.
Councilor Baki.
Aye.
Councilor Varda.
Aye.
Councilor Campbell.
Aye.
Mayor Champa.
Aye. Okay, that motion passes.
Alrighty.
All right, we'll move on. Katie, library bid for carpet at the library. Bid for carpet at the library from floor to ceiling.
Yes. Hi, everyone. So we did receive one bid back from floor to ceiling to install new carpet in the upstairs of the library. I was working with Katie Hildenbrand from Architectural Resources, and we chose a carpet that's high demand for the foot traffic that we encounter on a daily. It's going to be carpet squares with a rubber backing. We sent out 5 requests for bids and only received one back. We have 2 separate numbers here. So one is 31,000 and one is 28,000. The 28,000 is without providing movement of the furniture. And I did talk to Larry Fulstad, and it sounds like him and the guys at the garage are capable of moving the things that we need moved. So I guess my recommendation would be to accept the bid at the $28,229.
Council, make a motion.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Was Rups one of the local companies that was asked to bid on? Because they are a local company that installs carpet. And they did the last carpet there too.
I'm sorry, could you say that one more time, April? You cut out for a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So was Rups one of the local companies that was asked to bid on this project?
Yes, yeah. We did send it out to Rups Furniture. I spoke to Bob, and he said just at this point, he does not have the resources to tackle such a large project.
Thank you. I appreciate that information.
Yep.
I'll make that motion to approve the library carpet bid at the price of $28,229.56.
I'll second that.
Motion by Councilor Vaki, seconded by Councilor Campbell. Further discussion?
I have a question for Larry.
Go ahead, Councilor Varda.
Hey, Larry, how's it going?
Good.
So, with being down two people now, are you worried about hurting a back with this moving of furniture?
No, well, we're gonna use they have nice tools and stuff for this, and with our casual laborers and stuff. Well, I did walk around with Katie and examine exactly what needed to be moved, because I thought, boy, for $3,500, I better really see what this entails. Maybe we just want to contract this out, but really, it's not that big a deal. And with using the right tools, I think we can do it safely and save the money considerable amount, city a considerable amount. I think it's a matter of these carpet people. They don't have 4 extra people around to help them, so you have to hire laborers, and it just costs money. So, yeah, I think we're able to help.
Okay, I don't want nobody else getting hurt. That's all.
No, I appreciate that, Jim. Really.
Yep.
Anything else, Council? Margaret, you take a vote.
Councilor Lance.
Aye.
Councilor Fountain.
Aye.
Councilor Baki.
Aye.
Councilor Varda.
Aye.
Councilor Campbell.
Aye.
Mayor Champa.
Aye. Okay, that motion passes. Katie, library preparedness plan, curbside service.
Yes. So on page 49, 50, and 51 of your agenda, I provided some information, basically with the hopes of facilitating a discussion to help determine our next appropriate steps for offering library services. So on page 50, I put together kind of a reopening procedure broken down into a series of phases. The plan basically explores some possible reopening scenarios. I do want to emphasize that this is a working document, and each of these phases is really dependent on our governor's updates and recommendations from our local and national health agencies. So we are currently in phase 1. Phase 2 is essentially getting full staff back at the library, and phase 3 explores the idea of providing curbside service to our patrons. As far as what other libraries are doing, everyone's really all over the board. As of May 5th, there was 10 out of the 29 public libraries within the Arrowhead Library System that are currently providing pickup services for their patrons. And the decisions of that are really being made on a local level. At this point, I do believe it's a good idea to get books into the hands of our patrons. I really worry about the mental health right now. I worry about loneliness. And I just believe that providing books to people is kind of vital at this time while people are stuck at home. With that being said, my one concern is that our neighboring communities, Hibbing and Virginia, are not offering curbside, and they do not seem to be entertaining the idea at this time. If Chisholm does offer curbside, I'm a little bit apprehensive about patrons from Hibbing and Virginia wanting to utilize our services, and we just not having the resources to deal with that large of an increase in patronage. With that being said, that's all speculative, and you're never really going to know until you try. So I guess with that information, I was hoping just to kind of open up a discussion and see how council feels about us moving forward with curbside.
Katie, I'll chime in. You know, one of my concerns is that we're able to keep your 2 employees working. Obviously, we're hiring casual laborers and things like that, and I don't want to have problems there. So I like the idea. I like the idea that you're looking into this to see if we can do it, and I'd like you to continue down that path myself, and I'm hoping we do it. You know, if this continues for any length of time, I believe we do need to be doing it. So.
Mr. Mayor, I guess I would think that we would treat this kind of like we treated Tammy's. And I think if a motion is necessary, I'd make a motion to allow Katie to move forward with these phases at her discretion when she's comfortable and she has her staff comfortable as well.
Thank you, Travis. Yeah, that would be my recommendation as well. So I'll accept that motion. Is there a second for that?
Can we add Governor Waltz's to, you know, lifting orders or determining the governor's orders added to that motion for libraries in general?
Well, we could, April, but I think right now, I think Katie, if she feels she can do it safely, the governor's orders are already lifted enough to do that. But would that be correct, Katie?
My understanding is that, yeah, with the governor's orders, we should be able to move forward with curbside. I talked to somebody from the library state services, and it's basically just the decision is coming down to a local level.
Brian Lindsay, if you hear us talking about anything here that you should chime in on, I certainly want you to.
And Mayor, as this discussion is happening, I am taking a look, and it does appear that there's been a new executive order that was handed down just tonight, Executive Order 2056. And I think with regard to something like a curbside pickup for the library, I think that is at this point, according to the brief reading that I've made so far, I believe there is that's an option for the city. However, if we were going to do something like that, I think Katie would have to develop, or the city would have to have in place a preparedness plan as required in previous executive orders. There also appears to be some additional language that's included that relates directly to a previous topic, which is day camps and for programming for youth. So those are things we're going to need to look at.
Okay, thanks, Brian. And if you do refer to page 49, that is kind of the preparedness and response COVID plan for the library. And that document was kind of based off the template that Governor Waltz did send out. So I believe we would be set with the preparedness plan on page 49.
Did we have a second to Travis's motion?
I do not believe.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we do have a motion and a second to allow Katie to use her discretion on this based on if she feels she can do it basically under the guidelines the governor sets out. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I have a comment.
Yes, Jim.
Katie?
Yeah.
I am 100% behind you on this. Open it up and let's get them things moving again in town here.
Okay.
And invite Hibbing and Virginia folks to come over.
All right, sounds good.
Sell my house.
That's all right too.
Margaret, could you take a vote, please?
Counselor Lance.
Aye.
Counselor Fountain.
Aye.
Counselor Baki.
Aye.
Counselor Varda.
Aye.
Counselor Campbell.
Aye.
Mayor Champa.
Aye. Yeah, that motion carries. Eileen, good evening. Quarterly financial report.
Good evening, members of council, city administrator, Attorney Lindsay, city department heads, and all other attendees. I will be presenting to you tonight the first quarter 2020 financial reports, which include the revenues, expenses, and cash status for the general and enterprise funds. And what I'd like to do is share my screen so that you can see the detail of this financial data in case you didn't receive a copy of this report. So bear with me, I'm going to pull it up. Okay, I'm going to share it now. So can everyone see it there on the screen? Great. Alrighty, so on this page, I have general fund expenses represented. And I wanted to note or identify the column headings, department name, actual expenses to March 31st, 2020, budget for fiscal year 2020. And the last column is the percentage of the budget used as of March 31st, 2020. As you know, at the end of first quarter 2020, it represents 25% of fiscal year 2020's budget. So what we did in the percentage used column on this sheet was to identify and highlight all the departments that have used more than 25%. So I just wanted to mention a few of them. Elections is at a little over 30%. This was due to wages paid for the elections that transpired in first quarter 2020. Also, planning and zoning is at a little over 30% as well. This is due to workers' compensation insurance expense that dramatically changed in fiscal year 2020. Street lighting is performing at 34%. This was due to the purchase of some street light globes for some broken ones that needed to be replaced. And then insurance is at 33.56%. This is due to health and dental insurance changes that happen at the beginning of the year. I just need to do some adjustments in this department to represent those. That's why it's at 33%. I wanted to mention that in regard to the representation of revenue on this sheet, we didn't do it for a couple of reasons. One being that revenues in the general fund aren't associated with specific departments. They're all represented on their own under different revenue GL accounts. The other reason is that local government aid accounts for approximately 60% of our proceeds, which we usually receive in July and December. So representing these revenues here at this point wouldn't be appropriate because it would indicate an incorrect excess or loss of revenues over expenses. So I just wanted to note that on this page, it's not represented here. Anybody have any questions at this point? Bill, did you want to add or correct anything that I've presented thus far?
No, the only clarification would be on the work comp. That is paid once a year. So as the year goes on, the percentage for the workers' comp will go down because that's all paid in advance. And the election being over, that presidential primary, that's the first time we had that, and we're going to be reimbursed for our costs from the state for that. Mm-hmm. So we will have a revenue offset to that expense.
Great, thank you, Bill. Alrighty, on to page 2 of the presentation. Here we take a look at the enterprise fund revenues and expenses. And the representation of revenues is appropriate here because it transpires in real time and the revenues are associated to each enterprise fund. So that's why they're represented here. The format is the same. We did identify the percentage used for those departments that are performing above 25%. So in the case of water distribution, a pump was replaced at the pit pump house and obviously unbudgeted. Interest is at 132.5%. This is associated with the depreciation entries that I did, and obviously I did not allocate enough in the budget for interest in this particular department. I wanted to briefly mention the sewage treatment plant is at 29.18%. This is due to some increases in the sewage operating fees, which unfortunately I don't have any information about. But that's what brought it to that, to perform at that level. Any questions on this page about enterprise? Okay. Alrighty, last page of the presentation. This is the representation of cash. The top portion of this sheet shows the city's bank accounts, the balance at March 31st, 2020. And I did some comparisons to give us some perspective about how our money is performing. I took a look at the balance at the end of the year to see how our cash balances changed in the first quarter 2020. And as you can see, every account grew with the exception of the first line item, general account checking. It depleted by 18.35%. When I met with Bill to talk about this presentation, I was concerned about that change. There's a difference of 1.035 million approximately from the beginning of the year to the end of the quarter, which concerned me. It was a huge amount. But Bill reminded me of the big picture. The budget for general fund and enterprise expenses exceeds $10 million. So from the big perspective, $1,035,000 really isn't that big of a huge impact. And then also to remind you about the local government aid funding that happens twice a year. The timing is definitely an issue, and the representation here on this in this data. I also wanted to take a look at where we were last year at this time. We changed in comparison to last year by 13.92%. We were less than that percentage comparison to last year. But as you can see, every other account grew as well in comparison to last year. At the bottom of this page, it's just a graph of the balances and how each account fits in the cash pie. Number one is the general account checking at 36%. Number two is the general account savings at 14%. And number three is the state aid street savings at 13%. So I just wanted to point those out. Any questions on cash?
Council's questions?
Any points you'd like to make, Bill? Any addition?
No, I'm okay. Just, Eileen, you talked about the local government aid comes in, right at the end of the year, the second half, so that December 31st balance is going to be higher. There's $1.5 million that basically comes in on December 26th or 27th. So, and then the other thing is we get our real estate, our money from the county for the real estate taxes twice a year, and we haven't received that yet either. So, so the first half of the year, we don't really get a whole lot of revenue from the general fund until those items come in, the local government aid in July and the real estate tax first half payments, which come in sometime usually towards the end of June.
Just, I'd like to add something too. Bill and I have been having a couple of discussions about the whole property tax thing. And I think it was just announced that if you call up about your property taxes, that they may allow you to pay them later. I think they announced that somewhere. Somebody was telling me that today. Keep in mind, if the property taxes don't come in as expected, that's going to impact the amount of money probably that we get in July, is it, Bill? And so those revenues we're hoping they inevitably come in, but they could be lagging a little bit. We may not get them all as needed. I think the county even called us to ask us if we could get by if that should happen. Correct, Bill?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. The county auditor called me, asked me how we were financially. Told her we're right now we're fortunate. If that was the case, if they were allowing an extension to July, that we would be okay. She did say about 25% of the tax money is escrow, so those payments come from banks and lending mortgage agencies that have collected that money over the years. So that money comes in, and so we'll get our money. It's just a matter of when.
Thank you. I just wanted to state some important notes that I think are important. For second quarter 2020 financial presentation, we should have some really interesting data on how COVID-19 has affected the city financially, right? We can do some great comparisons to last year and how we're performing. And how it's influenced us. Another thing I'd like to mention is that there's a few things I'd like to incorporate going forward. Of course, I'll work with Bill, have conversations about it, and some of the things I'd like to address are we putting government dollars to good use? Is the city making progress toward our stated goals? And are our policies being applied or implemented appropriately? I think these are valid questions, and it'd be interesting to put together some data to answer those and present them or have that information available to the community if they'd like. So that's all I have. Anybody have any questions for me?
Good job, Eileen. Thank you for the information. I appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Eileen.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. All right, we'll move on. Travis, bocce ball, softball league discussion.
All right. So as you can see in your packets, the first discussion for me is about about bocce ball and softball. I did talk to Tammy, so she knows that it wasn't a surprise to her or shock to her that I was gonna put this in the packet. First, let me speak to bocce ball. I have spoken to Jim Kinney, who runs the men's bocce ball league. I don't know, I haven't spoken or no one's contacted me about the women's or the mixed league. I do know they sometimes have those, but the men want to play. And after having discussion with Jim Kinney, he is positive that they would be fine playing, and they can still set up a system where they can be physical distanced from each other, even to the point of using every other lane instead of all 6 that are up there. I think there's 6 up there. So he was confident that they could still run their league and be safe. And, obviously nobody's forced if they don't want to go up there. So that's bocce ball. If I flip over to softball on the backside of your packet, of your page in the packet, you can see that the softball teams are eager to get started as well. And even though I'm a horrible artist, hopefully you can understand that when it comes to physical distancing, obviously it's a big field, and the times that you are within proximity of another person would be when you're batting, because you'd have the batter, the catcher, and the umpire, and then also when your team is batting and you're in the dugout. So as you can see in the drawing, or hopefully you can see that we would implement the 6 feet distance between the batter and the catcher, and we would move the umpire behind the pitcher and to the side of the pitcher, so there's equal distance there. When you're playing, that's really the only time where you would be within proximity of a 6 feet of another person for a period of time. The other part would be in the dugout. I don't know the exact size of the dugout, but I know that 3 or 4 people could be in the dugout and still have that distance, and then the other people could spread out. The teams, I have 5 men's teams. They're all on board with this. They all think that we can do it safely, and I have an umpire who's on board as well. And I guess as you can read in my letter, the real big decision, in my opinion, is whether the leagues, both bocce ball and softball, are run through the city or whether they're run independently. So if they're run through the city, we pay a fee to the city. Larry's summer help and that, prep the fields and things of that nature. If we run it independently, that would be on us to do, not Larry. So we wouldn't be using any of Larry's manpower for that. As the letter states, the only expense would be softball chalk at that point. So my recommendation, but again, it's up for debate, would be that the leagues run for this summer only independently of the city. That way, if there are people who are upset that we're playing, it's really not, the city, it's not really on the city because it's an independent league. We're doing this all on our own because we want to do it. The other option would be we run it as we have, which would be through the city, which we would continue to pay that fee to the city, and Larry or a summer help would drag the field at that point. And so with that being said, and kind of listening to what the governor had to say tonight, I think that I think that we're going to be okay to play. I think that it would be fine if we waited. We usually start the first week of June, which I think would be fine to start then. That gives us an extra couple weeks here to see what goes on. The other option, of course, there's no baseball or softball for high school, so technically we could start as early as next week. That's, also whatever the recommendation would be from the council. But if, I would say, looking at the first week of June at the latest, and as that's his plan to potentially open restaurants and bars at that point as well.
I would, Travis, you know how I feel. I'd love to see all this stuff get opened up as well. I'll ask the attorney to chime in first, because as of prior to the governor's announcement tonight in his new order, I don't think we could do this at all. I don't think it matters if it's run through the city or run independently. I don't think it could happen. I know opinions vary on this, but when the governor does an executive order, unless it's challenged in court, it's basically state law, and that puts Mr. Manor pretty much in a bad position. So, Brian, you want to talk a little bit about it? Obviously, you probably haven't gone through the new executive order. Maybe what Travis is proposing is 100% okay to do already. But how about, let's talk about yesterday first.
Well, Mayor, this may be a case, don't shoot the messenger. I've got the new Executive Order 2056 up. This becomes effective as of 11:59 p.m. on Sunday the 17th. And I'm looking specifically at section 6C, which relates to gatherings. And so what it says is all gatherings of of more than 10 people are prohibited. And then it says, it goes on to say, gatherings are groups of individuals who are not members of the same household, congregated together for a common or coordinated social, civic, community, faith-based, leisure, or recreation purpose, even if social distancing can be maintained. Then it says examples of prohibited gatherings include, but are not limited to, social, civic, community, faith-based, or leisure events, sporting or athletic events, performances, concerts, conventions, fundraisers, that bring together more than 10 people from more than one household. And so, unfortunately, I think the status of things today may be the status of things on Monday, so long as it's contemplated that a hockey league is going to bring together more than 10 people, or obviously a softball game is going to bring together more than 10 people. There may be a way that bocce may be able to set up so that they limit 10 or less people, maybe bigger games or arrival times. But on the face of it, even under the new, more relaxed order, it looks like we may still be in a holding pattern. As Councilor Vaki indicated, there may be some loosening or some reduction in restrictions come June 1st, but it looks like more things are intended to be opened up. I see from the order here, the governor's directed a plan for reopening bars, restaurants, and hair salons be delivered to the public no later than May 20th, with the anticipation it will be implemented June 1st. So it looks like there's some hope, but as we sit here right now, I don't have, unfortunately, a more positive message to deliver.
Oh, which is fine, because we usually don't start till the first week of June anyway. I just don't want to be shut down too soon, with the potential for it to happen.
My recommendation is just, Travis, I don't see why you can't keep working towards the end you want to come to here, and see how things look different in our next meeting. We're still ahead of your schedule, right?
Yep.
You could throw these things together pretty quick if everybody's thinking there's a good chance it could happen.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so
just leave it
we
as
can get informational for now. That's fine.
Yeah, let's just look at just keep it on the agenda for next time. We'll have another discussion about all of that.
Yeah, that would be fine.
At least you're not shut down then at this point.
Yeah, Brian, is that your feeling about bocce ball too? I mean, what's to say they wouldn't have 10? If they could stagger times where they don't have a group greater than 10, would that be allowable?
In reading through the new lightened restrictions, I think if a bocce league could design its schedule so that you're not gathering in groups of 10 or more, I think there's a good chance that there could be a system worked out that would allow that to proceed.
Okay, very good. Okay, moving on to my second thing under me. This was brought to me by a citizen, and also I saw this on Facebook. So I told him I would bring it to the council. It involves the playgrounds. It's, as you can read in front of you, I don't have to read it for you, but the Executive Order 2038 open public and private parks and trails, playgrounds, is up for debate whether that falls on the category, and they can access their own RIC at their own risks. However, as you can see on the back page, the city of Ely did open their playgrounds with that safety sign at each of their playgrounds. And so with that being said, I guess I would lean more towards us following suit to that. I mean, groups of 10 or less can technically meet. So, obviously Brian's going to have to chime in here and give his opinion, but I'm of the belief that we could open our playgrounds.
Brian, you want to comment on that? Using signage to basically allow playgrounds to be open?
Right. And so this is actually a fairly interesting debate that's occurring, not just at the city level, but I know in higher levels and amongst different city attorneys. And the question becomes whether or not there's a distinction between a park and a playground. And so it really becomes a two-step analysis. Number one, are we permitted to open our playgrounds up? And number two, even if we're permitted to open our playgrounds, each individual city has the option of opening if they feel they can do it properly or take proper precautions. If they feel like there's too great a risk, even if it's permissible to open, cities can obviously elect to remain closed. And what I mean, with regard to the signage, according to the Department of Natural Resources outdoor recreation guides, if we've got our parks open, we're supposed to be providing some signage in all of our park areas, like parking lots of the disc golf course, those sorts of things. I think at a minimum, we'd have to add some additional language, just basically reiterating to people that if they see more than 10 people at the park or at the playground, they would probably have to or be encouraged to go elsewhere. And I think asking people to abide by that limitation may become difficult as far as an enforcement mechanism. But I think, this is one of those areas where if the crowds could be controlled and if things could be done appropriately, I think there's a possible way to get them open. I just think that implementation is going to be the trouble.
Yeah, so I understand, that the risk in that people are not, some people aren't, for this, and I totally respect and understand that. But, I also deal with 4th through 6th graders and their parents, and, one of the arguments that I get all the time is, well, why don't they lessen the work? My kid can't even go run around on the playground. It's the summer, they want to go outside. Now the lift, the stay at home is being lifted, so I just, to me, I just don't feel like we can house our citizens, and I think if we open the disc golf course, we have the recommendation there of social distancing. Why not let mom and a kid decide on their own if they want to go down to the police park? That's just my opinion, but that's how I feel.
So I had a question, Chief Manor. Have any of your squads given any warnings at the disc golf course for physical distancing?
Adam, we haven't, every time we get our people we get calls quite a bit from concerned citizens about that. By the time we get there, we don't see it. People are walking and chasing their discs around. We have at the playgrounds, but or talked about some of the stuff. By the time we get down there, there's so many people.
The reason I ask that is because we opened the disc golf course, but anyone who uses a lake walk, anyone who walks by the disc golf course can see that people can't be trusted to follow an ordinance. That's why we have police to enforce our ordinances. I don't think we need our squads going to enforce ordinances at playgrounds also. If we could trust our citizens to make a best decision, we wouldn't have the government stepping inside and saying that we need to stay inside and physically distance. We wouldn't have government getting involved to the extent that they need to, but we can't trust the public to make a wise choice, unfortunately. I'm with you, Travis, that I would love to open up the playgrounds. I'd love to open up the basketball court to a father and son going to shoot hoops, but one father and son's doing it, then the rest want to do it. It's the people with the red ball. It's nobody's playing with it until somebody else is. Now everybody wants to. And I just don't think there's any way to control usage, control different families getting together. So I think it's creating a burden to put our officers to go play park patrol that we don't need. I would much rather them giving parking tickets.
Wayne, can I pull you back in for a second? I was reading something as you were talking, so I don't know if you addressed this. Is what the city of Ely did here with their sign? I mean, the reason these things are closed is they're afraid that people are going to be spreading germs on equipment from kid to kid and whatnot. Is what they did with that sign, does it somehow relieve the burden on the city? The reason people aren't opening them is because they can't have people down there cleaning them enough to fall within governor's order, basically, so they don't open them. But does this sign somehow address that? Or is it just, it's a feel-good sign?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of both. I think if you were to open the playground up, this is something you've got to do. You've got to at least give the public notice whether we're cleaning and sanitizing, whether we're not. If we're not, just let them know that they're on their own. They've got to, accept the risk as they encounter it and take the chance if they want to use the equipment. I mean, my personal opinion, I don't think our insurance companies would love this, but I think it would have some effect. I think it would offer some level of protection, just that we're making the public fully aware of what's happening and fully making them informed of the risk that they're accepting by using the playground.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor.
Do you really think that children are going to know what this sign means and are going to take it upon themselves to wash their hands? And I mean, these are children, right? I mean, I can't believe we're going to, I don't know. I tend to agree with Adam on this. I don't think it should be up to us to open this up right now myself.
Okay. I tend to disagree a little, only for one reason. I drive by the parks and they got all kinds of kids in them. And at least they're in there with a sign that says they are supposed to be doing things a certain way. I went by the other day, there's 20 kids playing basketball at the police park, for lack of a better term. I guess that's what they call it. So I don't know, at least there's signage that says, hey, we're not responsible for you guys spreading germs if you're in here. It's obvious that this is a concern. But, I'm on the side of I'm trying to get things open if we can do it safely.
Well, and my only thought was too, after listening tonight, is, I mean, what can we control? When he lifts that stay at home, it ends on May 17th. What can we control?
Well, I'm assuming he's going to talk again on May 17th, so maybe we still can't control anything.
Yeah, I haven't seen what he said tonight, but I have a feeling that, on another extension and restrictions slowly being eased is going to happen. I would say any parent that wants to let their kid run around the playground, go buy a baseball or a football and go toss the ball around with their kids. If we want to open it up and put a sign and wash our hands of it, that's fine too. But or maybe just leave it closed and put a sign up, enter at your own risk. If they're obviously kids are going to go do what they're going to do. I don't know if anybody else has recently told a kid to get off the playground recently to see the response you get, but it's not very favorable.
Travis, if you want to make a motion, I'll ask for a second. Like I said, if the attorney doesn't see that there's some legal issue or some violation of the governor's order in doing this, that I don't have that big of a problem with it. I can tell you the kids have torn all the tape down. They're on the playgrounds already. The sign would at least hopefully give us a little bit of liability brushed off a little bit that we can use, that at least they were told.
I would say that if you didn't make the motion and it was supported, I would go along with it. I think it comes down to parenting also. I guess I contradict myself when I say that we need to get involved, but if you want to let it fly, I would be willing to go with you.
I just have one question for Larry. Hey, Larry.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
When you look for your signs, when you look at these signs, make sure you look to get red and blue ones, man. Like the garbage cans, red and blue. Let's go.
Crack me up.
Travis, are you gonna make a motion?
Yeah, I guess I will make a motion that we allow the playgrounds to open with signage such as you see in front of you moving forward.
Second.
Who seconded that?
Mayor, if I may.
Councilor Varda.
Further discussion?
Yeah, could I have a recommendation that if we do this and it passes, that we use our notification system to alert the parents that that there are still risks involved in letting your kids go to the playground, just so take it one step further than a sign at the park?
Absolutely.
Attorney Lindsay has a statement here.
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, Brian.
In taking it open, I think what we should focus on, just as, unfortunately I had to kind of deliver the opinion to Councilor Vaki relative to the gatherings. I think that from gatherings in the upcoming effective executive order 2056, I think that's where it's going to be controlling. And so in the signs, I would suggest that I can even prepare some language that would be helpful. I'd say we refer to that definition of gatherings and just encourage people, obviously, if they see more than 10 folks there, that they avoid. And we encourage everybody to comply with the governor's orders, even though those playgrounds are open.
I think that's acceptable.
Is it my audio that's this bad, or is Brian cutting out?
Yeah, Brian's cutting out.
Okay. So Brian, basically what you said is you're okay with what we're doing, but you want to change the terminology a little bit on the signs. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I think for purposes of the signs, we're going to want to refer to the executive order's definition of gathering, because what this executive order, as I looked through it with in a little more detail, what it does is it eases restrictions about stay at home, and what it does is turns to more definitional restrictions related to sizes and types of gatherings. There's nothing inherent in a playground, I think, that would prohibit it from being available to the public. But what I think is that, as my opinion is, that we're governed by the definition of gathering and the prohibition on gatherings and people.
So if you go ahead, April.
Can we table this to the next meeting?
Well, we do have a motion right now, and
I would have a question for Chief Manor. What's our options if they drive by and there's 15 kids in the park? What's our course of action? We shut it down?
You're saying once we open it up, or if we open it up?
What was that?
You hear me? I guess my question is, what's our course of action now, or if we open it up with signage?
If we open it up with signage, we still have to adhere to the gatherings of 10 people. So if we open it up with signage.
Yeah. That becomes the problem. They have to adhere to it. If you're opening it up, it depends on what the restrictions of the governor is going to put. But what inherently is the city responsible for? If the city opens it up and says you can use our playgrounds, and you have to follow the governor's orders, it's up to them then to follow the governor's orders. Is that going to be a real pain in the keister at certain times for the cops to try to control and or do other police work? Yeah.
not really, if they have to stop every once in a while and remind them that the governor's order doesn't allow them to be that close together. It's about a 2-second discussion. You're not going to probably arrest them.
Well, I'll guarantee you we're not going to arrest any 12-year-old or 6-year-old for being in the park. Yeah, that's just the way it goes. It's not an arrestable offense, and those kids can't be arrested as it is.
It's like right now, they're not even open, but they're in there. What are you doing? You're stopping, going and telling them, well, it's not really open.
Right.
not really supposed to be here. So what do we got? We got Travis's motion. Did we get a second for that motion?
Yes.
You made it, that's right. Any other discussion? So Brian, are you gonna help create the terminology for us so we can get signs made if this passes?
Mayor, this is Jim. Can I make an observation before Brian speaks?
Sure.
Brian, it seems like when you turn your head to the left is when you go inaudible or fade out. When you're looking straight ahead or turn to your right, then you're clearly discernible. Thank you.
So Brian, are you gonna help create the terminology we need for the signs? If this passes.
I'm happy to help.
Okay. Any other discussion, council? We'll take a vote. Margaret?
Counselor Lance,
Aye.
Counselor Fountain,
Nay.
Counselor Baki,
Aye.
Counselor Varda,
Aye.
Counselor Campbell,
No.
Mayor Champa.
Aye. Okay, that motion passes. Travis, your last item, Gym Sports Club noise ordinance request.
Yep, so this is no different than the last time Kelly asked us to approve these. I believe they're the same corresponding dates as last year, except, they're on Fridays or Saturdays. It was highlighted, it's in black and white, but obviously this is pending the governor's restrictions. Kelly is well aware of making sure that she has to follow those restrictions, and who knows what's going to come up June 1st. So the dates are obviously temporary based on the governor's restrictions, but she's asking us to lift the noise ordinance from 8 to midnight on the dates listed in front of you. There is an equal amount as we approved last year. She just asked me to present this, so there it is.
My guess is the June ones are never gonna make it to start with. But
yeah, you're probably right.
Somebody want to make a motion to allow it, or comments, discussion?
I'll make a motion to allow those 3 dates in June, 3 dates in July, 4 in August, and tentative one September 5th.
Support.
Motion by Councilor Lance, seconded by Councilor Baki. Further discussion?
I have a question. Not that I'm not for this, but I thought we only approved 8 days last year, not 11.
I think we added like 4 more at the end. A second time. I don't know that answer, Jim, myself, but.
Okay, I could be wrong. I'm just remembering 8. So.
Yeah, I guess I don't know the answer to that. I think she says in this letter that this was approved last year, so I thought it was the same amount. I guess I don't know the answer to that. Sorry.
I don't know why I remember, but I remember there being the discussion at the council because there was some feedback from a couple residences, and God, I want to say it was you there, Councilor Vodke, that said that you supported the addition or something because of they added some dates of some fundraisers or something. Don't quote me exactly, but I do remember there was an addition to it last year, and I was probably paying pretty good attention because I was kind of new and I was kind of bringing it all in. So I do remember an addition, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, my recollection is they came back and added a couple more dates or something. But we do have motion and support. Any other discussion? Margaret, could you take a vote, please?
Counselor Lance,
Aye.
Counselor Fountain,
Aye.
Counselor Baki,
Aye.
Counselor Varda,
Aye.
Counselor Campbell,
Aye.
Mayor Champa.
Aye. Okay, that motion passes. Thank you, Travis. Brian, Ironbound Studios updates.
Thank you, Mayor, and I will be brief. Since our last update, we have had some movement as I had indicated during my last update, Mr. Sepala and Ironbound Studios had indicated that while they were going to surrender the space within the city of Chisholm City Hall, they did intend to honor the obligations that they had under the EDA loan. To that end, I'm happy to report that it appears that Ironbound Studios has made a $10,000 payment, which brings the arrearages on their EDA loan current. I can also report that we have received certificates and declaration pages from insurance policies that cover the collateral that secures that loan. The only outstanding item at this point is, as I sit here today, I have not been able to ascertain the exact location of the items of collateral, that being a camera package for movie production and a Ford Edge vehicle.
Okay, informational. We'll move on. Bill, Bruce Mine Park temporary construction permanent access easement.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I had Brian review this document, and basically, in addition to Brian, and it's not Brian's doing it, there's two other attorneys involved, one representing the Railroad Authority, who is received the $1 million grant to build the facility, the other one representing the IRRB, and so there was a technicality that was discovered in the original agreement, and this is just a clarification that spells out that the city is the grantor, so to speak, and this is for the Bruce Mine Park temporary construction and permanent access easement. I would like to recommend passage of this agreement. I'll entertain any questions.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion for the Bruce Mine Park temporary construction and permanent access easement.
Okay, motion by Councillor Fountain. Is there a second for that?
Second, I'll second that.
Second by Councillor Campbell. Discussion? Margaret, please.
Counselor Lance,
Aye.
Counselor Fountain,
Aye.
Counselor Baki,
Yes.
Counselor Varda,
Aye.
Counselor Campbell,
Aye.
Mayor Champa.
Aye. Okay, that motion passes. Bill, St. Louis County Fire Protection Agreement for Unorganized Township 59-21.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, councilors, on page 70 of your packet is a letter that came in from the county. This comes every year regarding the fire protection for the unorganized township. And I've had just one conversation with Chief Brown. We haven't had a follow-up. We did not increase the dollar amount last year. You can see in the second paragraph that the amount submitted was $15,459. In talking to Chief Brown, he did say there were some price increases that should be incorporated into this, and I just haven't had the opportunity to sit with Chief Brown. And Mr. Brown, unless you have a recommendation tonight, my recommendation would be to bring this back at our next meeting. We have to notify the county by June 1st. I was in communication with the county today, letting them know that this was on the council agenda tonight. We probably wouldn't have an answer until the 27th, and we would get them the amount by June 1st. So Chief Brown, unless you have a recommendation, I think you and I, between now and the next meeting, need to have a conversation and come back to the council with a recommendation.
Sounds like a good plan.
So basically then just information.
Informational?
Yes, sir. We'll bring it back at the next meeting with a recommendation.
Okay.
I do have a quick question for you.
Yep, go ahead.
See, last year, weren't we looking at increasing the cost or the rate 3%, but we were too late and couldn't do anything about it, right?
That's correct, Councilor.
Yep. Yeah, that was the main thing. We were late. By the time we got it, we had already tell them. So yeah. So yeah, bring us a percentage back or whatever, Bill, and I'm assuming we'll move forward with it, especially based on we didn't have an increase last year. Bill, you want to start on the next one with the public safety first, and I'll add anything that I think we missed.
I know, Councilor Lance at the last meeting asked for a meeting, that Mike Clark, 5 Bugles, Scott Sasala, and you know, the intent is to do that. What we're currently working on is some value engineering to look at things that we can do to bring down the cost. And we did come to find out that there are some footings from the old wastewater treatment plant that are below the 4-foot level in the ground. That would put some additional costs. Engineer Johnson recommended the possibility of moving the building, which may be an option. Ties into the water main looping. So we're looking at items that could possibly reduce the cost. Plus, we're getting close to when, by statute, the state legislature is supposed to adjourn, but you don't really hear anything taking place with bonding. And so we're not exactly sure what's going to happen. I did sit on a call through the League of Minnesota Cities where the governor was on the call. And with the state's budget forecast going south in a hurry with COVID-19, people were recommending to the governor that maybe not a good idea to do bonding. Governor's opinion was just the opposite, that we really need to do bonding and need to do projects to get the economy back going again when the time is right. So his philosophy is to, at least on that call, which was a couple weeks ago, is to try to get past a healthy bonding project. I've been in contact with Senator Thomasoni, Representative Sandsted, about shovel ready, because that can be a key component that the legislature is looking at if they want to get the economy going and they move forward with bonding, that we would be ready to go. And we were far enough along in the process where I think I mentioned this before, that we are considered shovel ready if we need to pull the trigger, if they're going to finance a good portion of this project, and you felt that we could use some of the reserves to help fund part of this project, it could move fairly quick. So a number of things going on. And with that, Mayor, anything you can add?
Well, you know, the main thing from my side of the desk is I'm really waiting to see if we get any money out of this legislature. But the point you brought up of trying to create a situation where, you know, we can say it's shovel ready, we're trying to do that. I certainly don't have any issue with setting something up with Mike Clark. I just don't know what we can even discuss right now. There really has nothing that's moved much since we were there, other than we found out we have a little bit of an issue underground on that site. Larry's working to try. Larry wants the dirt if we have to remove it, I think, so we're saving some there. There's not a lot of moving things. At the end of the day, we got to figure out how we're funding this, and that has to do with when the legislature adjourns and what comes out of their bonding, and or if for some reason a bunch of money ends up in Minnesota and they're looking for projects that are shovel ready to put people back to work. And we have submitted a list of a number of our projects to Iron Range Resources, because I think they would be like the catalyst for dispersing that money. So, like you said, no problem having a meeting, but I don't know what we'd really discuss. There's nothing going on. We're kind of in a holding pattern here.
You know, Mr. Mayor, I brought that up at our last council meeting before we closed down City Hall to the public. I believe Mike Clark and 5 Bugles were coming the following Tuesday to have a meeting, and they were going to have a working session with us. So I know that was kind of on the plan. So my idea was to utilize these Zoom meetings without 5 Bugles and the other agencies, you know, acting on all these visits with us. So we do these meetings here and we don't get docked our 12 in-person visits. But I think a lot of the questions that anybody has, we can answer over the electronics here.
Bill, would you I mean, like I said, I don't have a problem if Mike Clark is available to have a, let's to call a little special meeting to have a, half hour, get up to speed and ask questions, I would absolutely have no problem with that if we could.
But if there's no reason, that's fine. There's no reason. But like I said, they were planning on coming to address the council. And I don't have the dates in front of me, but save them a trip and save us
in a perfect world, Adam, I think by the end of May they're supposed to have their, but to be done with the legislature and have the bonding thing put together. I think it's the end of May. So, but I'm already hearing about extensions and special, coming back and finishing work. So I don't know how it's going to turn out is the problem. Main thing we're trying to do is make sure that 5 Bugles could get things together if all of a sudden this becomes a 2020 project because we can get a big chunk of the money.
Right. I think they were supposed to have like a number for us, weren't they? At least they should have been that far along in their project to give us what their estimate was before we send out the bid package to contractors.
Well, Phil, we have that stuff, did we not?
And didn't share it with me.
We have an estimated number. And that's why we've been working on the value engineering to look to see if there's things that we can cut, because what would happen is that the plans and specifications, if we approve the number, would have to be then drawn and come up with. So
I think that number, you're going to share that number, at least the preliminary number with the council.
Absolutely. I'm sure we can.
Yeah, let's get anything we got from Mike Clark recently out to the council, Bill.
Sure.
And that'll create another conversation, I think.
Sure.
Not for nothing, but I hate these Zoom meetings.
They sure take a lot longer, don't they?
Oh my God.
Oh, you're telling me. All right, we'll move on.
I think we need to keep these packets under 50 pages would be nice.
Well, 25 of them are them cover sheets you wanted.
Yeah, and whatever.
Just kidding.
That's fine. I gotta work at 9 tonight.
Yeah,
That's actually
I might
one of
have
the
to leave
greatest.
2 here pretty quick.
All right, let's get these things going. Okay, so the next thing, first item under myself, resolution 0520-40, extend local emergency. Let me ask Brian Lindsay one question and I'll ask for motion. Brian, I believe we're set up on this local emergency that if the governor's state of emergency expires, ours expires too. Is that correct? So even if we extend it to the next meeting, like I'm proposing here, it just drops off if his does on the 17th or whatever. Correct? That must have been a yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So, was that him that said yes?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, that would be my recommendation. We extend that to I'm trying to find a page, but I think it's extended to 27.
Yep, I'll make that motion for resolution number 0520-40. Extend the local emergency from May 13th until May 27th, and unless earlier canceled by subsequent action.
Second.
Of the governor. Motion by Councillor Fountain, seconded by Councillor Campbell, I believe.
Yes.
Discussion?
Yeah. Hey, so he did extend his till June 12th.
Okay, so we'll make it then.
We just want to extend it till June 12th, so we don't have to do this again next meeting.
Let's go with the resolution since it's written up the way it is already. We can put another one on. You're quick and painless. Margaret, take a vote, please.
Counselor Lance.
Aye.
Counselor Fountain.
Aye.
Counselor Baki.
Yes.
Counselor Varda.
Aye.
Counselor Campbell.
Aye.
Mayor Champa.
Aye. Next item, it's informational. We still have 2 positions open on the Housing Redevelopment Authority. If people are listening at home, they haven't shut us off by now. I'd love to get some people on the Housing and Redevelopment Authority. We could use the help there. Parks and Rec Board, we still have an open position there. This last one was just added. The fair asked for a new representative. Don Hankey's always served on that. I'm sure he would continue to serve on that. However, I'm going to open it up just to see if anybody else wants to serve. And if I don't hear anything in the, I don't even know if they're going to have a fair. It's a wait see there too. But if I don't hear anything and Don wants to be back on it, we'll bring him back to put him on there. So informational at this point, but we have those openings.
We need to add the EDA on there. There's one opening for the EDA. We never filled the lead-up position yet.
Okay, so that's okay. That's good. So we have one on EDA as well. Just moving on, ordinance for recreational fires and nuisance smoke. I'm gonna kind of throw this at Vern and Bob a little bit because I think the conflict comes in, we don't really have an ordinance that it gives Vern any way to enforce this, and Bob thinks we're not doing things. I don't know. It sounds like we're not doing things exactly right here. Bob, you want to start? Try to get me up to speed a little bit.
We both field a lot of calls, and the information I brought to you is from the fire code, and I think the building code addresses it too. Mandy can speak to that, but a lot of these smaller lots that already have a lot of blight issues, and I don't know in your packet if it included the diagrams. I didn't see it, but the 2 recommendations I have for any open burning is to have a 3-foot maximum, 2-foot height for flame. We called a lot of them. They're dumping all kinds of accelerants on there, and they have 15, 20-foot flames. And the other big trigger is a 25-foot minimum to any combustible. Well, look at all of our 25-foot lots. They have another recommendation if you have it in a structure, these confined baskets and mesh over the top that would help contain the embers and stuff. They reduce it to a 15-foot minimum. And then Vern, Chief Banner, you can address all the calls you get for the nuisance smoke.
That's right, Chief. That's one of the major complaints that we have. People lighting fires, and they're always too big anyways, but yeah, it's smoke rolling. As soon as summer comes around, everybody wants their windows open, and the people light fires, and it comes right in their houses, and we start getting all those complaints of smoke rolling and the smell of it. So those are our common responses, and that is a big issue. People have health problems, health concerns, and it'd be nice to have some teeth in the ordinance where we could put those fires out if it was an issue.
So, my opinion, if anybody wants it, there's no way we can follow that state code with our 25-foot lots. You guys, we might as well retire because we're getting run out of town.
Agreed.
But some of the other things, that could be enforced. Do we have like a recommendation on how we can write an ordinance that actually carries a little, some of the things that you see are problems that are obvious problems, right? Fires that are 20 feet high, they happen, I get it. I've always heard that we had ordinances against a lot of that stuff. Apparently it's not a very good one if we do.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Can maybe Vern and Bob bring back a recommended sample ordinance of what they'd like to see to the council for the next meeting?
You'll direct them to work with the attorney to come up with something?
Yes, I think I'm going to make that motion to have Bob and Vern work together with our attorney to bring back a sample ordinance to the council for our next meeting.
Second.
So, good, we got a motion and second. Do we have some guidelines that we'd like them to work on, or maybe Bob and Vern can chime back in on things they'd like to see in there and see how we feel about them? Like I said, I chimed in on the 25-foot lot. I'm not going there, but I certainly, some of these maximums I think are workable.
Right, I would think that I would think they would bring us back something that would, work based on what our lot sizes are in town and what they recommend.
Can we legally make less distances than what's required by the state fire code?
Well,
That's something we have to work on with the attorney and bring back to us.
Smiling at us.
did we, what's the term? Did we, agree to the state fire code? Didn't we have to do that back in the day? You had to accept the state fire code or something to go along with this or something? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Attorney Lindsay, maybe you can help these guys address the glaring concerns on how they can enforce it. Maybe look at some other ordinances from our surrounding communities.
Right, and really, it becomes an issue of preemption, so I'll take a look at that, and then I will work with Chief Manna and Chief Brown to try and develop something that we can bring back to the council.
Thank you.
I would think our main focus should be, burning rubbish, burning trees and leaves, stuff that you can, the stuff that creates a lot of smoke that you can bring out to the compost pile. Mayor, you said 25-foot lots. I know I can't have a fire in my lot that's 25 feet away from a building. So, I mean, if you're looking at, you got 10 feet away from an LP gas container, but 25 away from a garage door, I think we should probably be looking at that, or maybe just leave it out if it's going to be in an ordinance. But again,
it's a tough one. I got a 50-foot lot in my yard, and I don't think I could be 25 feet away from a building. Even with 50 foot, I got a house and a garage and probably 15 feet between them. And yeah. Okay, so we have motion support to direct them to work with the attorney and bring us something back. Further discussion? Margaret, you take a vote on that, please.
Counselor Lance.
Aye.
Counselor Fountain. Absent. Counselor.
I'm here. I'm getting ready. Aye.
I'm sorry.
Aye.
Counselor Baki.
Aye.
Counselor Varda.
Aye.
Counselor Campbell.
Aye.
And Mayor Champa.
Aye. Okay, that motion carries. Next item, accept firefighter Jessica Trunnell's resignation. I just like to say that first, obviously, thank you for her time here in serving, but geez, what a passionate letter or whatever the term is. Very nicely written. I don't know if Bob wants to chime in at all or anything, but I'll entertain a motion to accept her resignation and thank her for her time, and we should send out a letter thanking her as well.
Thank you, and very much so. She just pointed out very much in her letter that job we do is not meant for everybody.
I'll make them up.
Motion by Councilor Baki, second for that.
Support.
Councilor Lance, further discussion? Margaret, you take vote, please.
Counselor Lance.
Aye.
Counselor Fountain.
Aye.
Counselor Baki.
Aye.
Counselor Varda.
Aye.
Counselor Campbell.
Aye.
Mayor Champa.
Aye. Okay, that motion passes. This next item, what are we going to do? Direct the city administrator to reach out to the school district to try to set up a Zoom meeting? Is that what we'd like to do here? Between the school board and the city?
I would think
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I think we agreed to meet a second time anyway.
Well, we have to because we got to figure out what they're paying us for the next year or something, right? We didn't have an.
Yeah, it was a 1-year deal, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
So-
1 year. It's for this year that we have to figure out. The fact that there wasn't baseball, softball, track comes into the picture, maybe not. But
Before we go, can I just say my sincere condolences to the family of Darcy Lucas.
Yes.
My prayers are with you and your with the family, and I'm sure everybody else here on the council feels the same way. So,
Yes.
with that, I have to go to work, guys, so
Good.
what do you need me to do?
What do we got? We got, somebody make a motion to direct Bill to bring us back some potential dates for a Zoom meeting, possibly. Bill, would that work?
Sure, Mayor.
I'll make that motion. I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Counselor Campbell, second by Counselor Fountain. Margaret, could you take a vote, please?
Counselor Lance.
Aye.
Counselor Fountain.
Aye.
Counselor Baki.
Aye.
Counselor Varda.
Aye.
Mr. Campbell.
Aye.
Mayor Champa.
Aye. You know, and the last item would be to direct Larry to go purchase that ATV we need for the Redhead Mountain Bike Park. It's a budgeted item, and he's got the low bid there.
Well, I'll make a motion
that
that we
motion.
buy the ATV, but I would also make that motion to include the power steering.
Okay, you want to do that? That's fine, Adam.
I talked to a few other people and they said it would just be, slightly ridiculous not to do it now. Something that could be very, very useful in the future. I think it'd be a very good thing to do.
Second, Adam.
I agree, Counselor. It's budgetary, so I wanted to give the council that option.
Okay, motion and support. Any other discussion? Okay. Margaret?
Counselor Lance.
Aye.
Counselor Fountain.
Aye.
Counselor Baki.
Aye.
Counselor Varda.
Aye.
Counselor Campbell. Aye. Mayor Champa.
Aye. Okay, that motion passes. If there isn't anything else, I'll entertain a motion to
No,
adjourn.
unfortunately, I do have a question.
April, we'll give you a pass to go if you'd like.
So give me a pass.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. God bless you.
Yeah, April.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you, April. Okay, go ahead, Adam. Sorry.
So I totally forgot. So when our opening of the playgrounds, are we going to open the basketball courts and the tennis courts as well with that? Or is that something that we gotta look at next week? I think if kids are gonna be running on the playground, they should be able to go play tennis.
I think the playground being open would encompass all of that.
Okay.
Because it's part of the playground. That would be my opinion.
And second, I'm going to just put a bug in some people's ears. I've had people reach out asking about summer ice, utilizing our skating rinks. So that's something that I'll be reaching out to Tammy and, the curling, or not the curling club, but Ed Chamernick and, anybody else that might have input on that.
What was that, Travis? Summer ice?
Summer ice.
For skating.
I know,
We have an arena, let's use it.
Agreed.
All right. We'll work on that. Motion to adjourn.
motion. Support.
Travis by Adam. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any nays? All right, this meeting is adjourned. Everybody have a great night. Thank you for